Okay, where is everyone this morning? Here we go. Good morning. Good morning. Oh, no cameras for anybody today?
Morning.
Good morning, everybody. Oh, Gabriel, thank you for keeping your camera on. I appreciate it. Hey, Tiffany. I'm glad to see you all. But I have to say, I have a couple people I could actually see. It's so much easier to teach, you know. All right, let me let a couple more people in. Good morning, Daniela. She's chatted us. All right, let me let everybody in. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Gabe, Tiffany, Ming Lang, Ben, Gelio, Marilia, Daniela, Callista, Nassim, Joseph. I could do that when we're not all here. I want to just let a couple more people in before we get started. We're going to be doing more lip sync stuff today. Very similar to last week. It's just the kind of thing that deserves 2 weeks. I think I've got the majority here just now. All right. Is everybody hearing me fine? All right, great. I think what I want to do is just jump right into screen sharing. I have a few things to talk about, briefly before we dive in and make some art together. But the semester's ended, so I want to make sure that we head toward the finale properly. All right, so let me share my screen. All right, first off, I want to address this. We have 2 classes left, and frankly, it's a little bit of wiggle room about how that actually works. As you can see, being that today's the 14th class, next week is the 15th, which is the ultimate class. The class is designed around 15 sessions. And that is going to be on the 11th. Don't miss it. It is the last day of the primary agenda. Let me put it that way. The week after, though, is exam week. And our class would land on Friday of exam week, the 18th. So I would just want to say, my own take on this, which I keep changing. I've been at this school for a few years now. What's exam week for classes that don't have an exam? You know what I mean? I personally don't believe in exams for subjects like this. I believe in the homework, which lets me know how you're doing. So I don't really need an exam. So typically, I usually make that an optional class. No one, needs necessarily to come. But I just wanted to see how things change in terms of the school, what they see as required or not. I'm probably going to make that last one an optional class, and it's probably going to be just extra kind of stuff. Look, let's not jump ahead of ourselves. Next Friday is absolutely critical. It is the grand finale. Make sure to be there, right? And then I'll tell you whether I'm going to have that extra class or not during exam week. Am I making sense? Does anybody have any questions for me about that? You guys are awake, right? I got one person nodded. Other people,
Yes,
I'm not
we're
sure.
awake.
Think I'm awake.
Yeah.
What's that, Joseph?
So the last 2 classes, the last one is where the optional exam is. Is that right?
Well, it's not going to be an exam. It's just called exam week. We're not going to have an exam. Give me 1 second. Let me just let 2 people in. exam week, right, is, you know, the idea is for classes that do exams. You're in a math class, is going to be an exam. You know, this class isn't going to have an exam. So next week is our last official class. Now, I'll let you know last week what my intention is for the Friday of exam week. I don't intend on requiring it, that people come. Usually I just have something cool that I want to show you. Like, for example, I may spend the whole class in Adobe Illustrator, since you all have Creative Cloud, and it has a very close relationship to what we do, right? So that would be off mat, what hikers call cross country. We're not on the trail anymore, right? So come next Friday, let me tell you what my idea is for the last one. All right. And that the 18th, again, like I said, I intend on making that optional. Next week's not optional. Joseph, is that clearer? If it's not, you could tell me.
No, yeah, it's clear.
It is? All right.
It just takes me time to get to the mute button.
Say it again.
It's just I keep on misclicking the mute button around.
Oh, yeah, that does happen a lot. So, listen, for those of you who just arrived, I always assume you're having, internet issues or something like that. Back when we were in the physical classroom, I knew some teachers that stood by the door, and when 9 o'clock came, they locked it. And this was like training to be on time. They're like, sorry, 9 o'clock, lock the door. But here, I don't know what's going on with the internet for us as individuals. So let's get back to this. I don't want to spend more time on it just because some people are a little late. They should be reading the handout. Here is the deal. There are 2 classes left. Next Friday is the official end of the class. Exam week is quasi-official, and we don't have an exam. Let me be clear, there's no exam, right? So next week's our last official class. I consider the 18th an optional day, right? And I'll let you know next week what I'm thinking for the 18th. But be sure you're here on the 11th, and you could decide then about the following week, right? That's kind of all I have to say about that one. But the critical reason that I want you to understand it is this is the end of the class. Officially, this is going to be an extra one. So the homework is due by the 11th. So if any of you are behind, and I got to be blunt, several people are radically behind. Several people who do every homework just missed one. And it always makes me suspicious when someone works in every single homework and just missed the walk cycle, or just missed the kinetic type assignment or something like that, And since there, I think about a total of 8 homeworks, if you got high grades and you missed one homework, you'll pass and you'll probably get a decent grade. But if you got high grades, why not do them all and go for an A? So listen, I want to tell you something. There's over 20 people registered in this class. I'd say about 22 people currently registered. As you can see right now, there's 15 students in the class. So that means there's a good 6, 7 people who are taking this asynchronously, right? A little less than ideal, but they're doing what they can. I just want to say something to everybody, though. I've got about 30% of this class failing. Is that a lot? I got to be honest. Depends on the school and the system. CUNY isn't so hard to get into a particular school. So there's always a fair amount of people who I call tourists. And I don't mean to be insulting to anybody, but the tourist doesn't intend on staying. They visit, see if they like it. The thing that's interesting is, while a third of the class is failing, a third of the class is heading for A's. There's a number of people with over 90 averages. I'm only saying this not to be competitive. I'm saying this to be realistic. If this is the animation community, if we were a test group, that means a third of the people aren't going to make it. A third of the people are going to excel. The third of the class that's in the middle, right? They could look either way. They could be like, well, I could slip into the wrong half, the wrong population here and not get my job done and, not work in this field. Or I could aim at these people who are working all the time, who really want it, So I just really want to be blunt, right? At this stage, if anybody in here has an average that's under 50, how are you going to get that up to 65? in the next couple of weeks. So I want to say a couple quick things about strategizing for everybody here in different ways. I'm going to skip over this for a second because I just want to point something out. I updated Blackboard a couple days ago, or was it? No, yesterday, right? For this particular class. So I literally looked through every homework that's handed in. Late homework, nobody handed in any revisions, so I didn't do that. But late homework and everything handed in on time. Everything, right? So that basically means today, if you get a chance to look at Blackboard, what am I saying? Make the time to visit Blackboard, right? And if you're like, hey, I did hand in that turnaround assignment and I got a 0 for it, you send me an email right away. In fact, the wisest thing would be to upload it again. Now, obviously something happened. I'm open-minded, I'll take care of it, but you have to look. I don't really want to hear things after the last day. So just look, see where you're at, see if there's a discrepancy. If there isn't a discrepancy, see if you can get the energy up and improve those grades for those of you who need that, right? To be blunt, there's some people I'm not sure. I think they may have passed the point of no return. There are other people who are on top of their game. Everybody has to look for themselves. So the first step for you in terms of wrapping up this class is to look at Blackboard today and see what you're doing. Please don't talk to me here about it verbally, maybe at the end of the class, if you like. I don't want to have individual discussions about your homework records in front of the rest of the class, right? So it's best to email me or wait to the end, right? But if you don't look at Blackboard, you don't know how you're doing, and you may have issues. Please use this email address if there's something you need to tell me, you want to tell me in email. Look, the withdrawal deadline is December 13th. And I have to say something about this, right? And I'm going to post this to YouTube, and I really want to be very specific what I'm saying right now. I'm not administration, and I'm not a class advisor. I don't have the knowledge, right? And I don't have the authority to guide you about this. But I could say this much. As far as I understand it, if you withdraw at this point, you don't get your money back, right? But you don't lower your grade point average. Now, it's not good to have a lot of W's on your transcript for withdrawal, but if you have 1 or 2, most schools are going to ignore it. So it's often the best strategy for anyone with a really low grade, a failing grade, to withdraw. And, there's only about a week to do that. And I don't know what the steps are. To be a little bit helpful, I wrote the head of the department last night. Maybe he'll get back to me by the break so I could guide people, anyone who wants to look into it, because it's different at different schools. So I just have to say, be smart, right? If you've tanked, you haven't done the homework, you've done half the homework, can't pass a class with half the homework, you might want to seriously consider withdrawing. I'm not going to give any charity grades. This is a class designed for majors, so I can only pass people who are truly ready to move forward. And I don't mean that with judgment. I really mean it with concern, genuine concern. Does anybody have any questions about your grades in general? What I'm saying about withdrawals?
Oh yeah, I have a question about the do you check the like the homework and stuff every day?
No, not at all. No teacher alive does that. All of us have over 100 students. I often have up to 200 students. So I really will check a given class every 3 weeks or something like that. But I checked a couple days ago. No, I checked yesterday. So your grades are completely up to date. Whatever you see on Blackboard represents what I received.
Yeah.
And
I submitted the extra credit, so I know you are not going to see that right now at a class. But
yeah, if you did it since, I don't remember what time of day it was yesterday, but say like midday was the last work that I finished it. And of course, it's the end of the semester. I'm not going to wait very long, probably within the next week or maybe after that last class if I'm getting a lot of work coming in, right? But you could bet I'm going to be looking again and double checking before anyone's final grades get posted. Is that clear, Zach?
Yeah, that's very clear. That's very clear.
Great. Listen, guys, I really appreciate your questions, so don't be shy. I really do. All right. So look, I don't want to keep talking about it, but it is the end of the semester, and if I don't talk about it now, the game is over. if you owe me work, you must get it by next Friday. There's some people who get telling me they're going to do work and just didn't do any. And it's partly like I'm sympathetic because I understand the psychology of being young when there's lots of challenges. You may have jobs, all kinds of things. I get it, but I just have to say strategically, one can't work in this field without being very prepared to work. So these are the homeworks I'm still accepting. I just want to point out, though, that if you waited forever for a computer, something went wrong, the school was going to loan you a computer, so you're further behind than this. Even here it says, unless you were waiting for a computer, I'd consider taking homework before this. Write me, ask. Focus on these first, though. Don't go doing the early ones because they're worth less anyway. I want to say one last thing about Blackboard, though, which I neglected to write on the handout. In Blackboard, there's a section called weighted average, right? And that's what you want to look at. Most of your grade may be exactly the same as that. It may be, so that's what the first thing that I look at. It doesn't represent the extra credit, Zach, and several of you did the extra credit. So I look at that, and then I look to see how you did on the extra credit, and I'll raise your grade. Unless the extra credit sucked. But nobody's really, anyone who's done it did a pretty good job. Some of you did an excellent job. So the weighted average, that's the most important one. So you know if you're passing, if you're excelling. A couple people got 100 in the weighted average. They just rocked. That's pretty rare, but there are others who really, left the room, a long time ago. All right. So look, I want to just mention a couple quick things. I want to give you a peek at something. Tiffany, I think did this great thing. I'm planning on keeping it. This is Discord. So you can see, it started to get some action. The weird thing is people are not using their real names. I think this is Marilia. I don't know if you're here, Marilia, you could say so. This is kind of fun. I actually commented on it.
No, that isn't me.
That isn't you. Whose is this? It's funny.
Hey, on the earth.
It's Callista.
That's what
It's
it's.
Callista. Thanks, Callista. I like it. I hope you don't mind. I thought this guy looked like a COVID. It's like taking COVID and making it less horrifying. But I like it. In our very own Tiffany, who is really showing you what she can do. I don't want to scare people because she's really so good at this stuff. How come, where did this happen? I just went to a different. Oh, I didn't realize you put a whole playlist up there, Tiffany. Is that what's going on here?
That's the link to the YouTube video I uploaded. So those are all on YouTube. The
Wow.
video finished. See?
Oh, so I wonder which one I looked at. The first one I saw one this morning. A walk cycle.
Yeah, you just hit the little replay button at the bottom. Yeah, that's the awesome.
I'm giving them a peek. It feels so antique. It's not just the music, but definitely all the candy. Cool zoom. Just a passing ferry. Happens all the time. Beautiful landscape. So listen, I just want to say I don't intend on taking this down. So anybody who's, I don't know if this will have a life, after the semester for you guys, but I'm gonna leave it up for a little while. So anyone who cares to join it, I actually just, I didn't really go with these instructions because I didn't need to. I took the easier road, just click this, and it kind of walked me through how to set myself up. So thanks again, Tiffany. I think that's great. And I intend on pushing that forward. By the way, I do want to get to the stuff today, but I just want to mention when I review the way this semester went, what I liked, what I didn't like, for my own part as the tour guide, I wish we had a third week for walk cycles. We did it for two weeks, which is fairly a long time, but I think it actually needed another one, just like one more. One thing I love about your walk cycles, Tiffany, is they have personality, they're so specific to that person. Like I know a little bit about that candy man just by the way he walked. So, I would love to help everybody, move toward that. I know a lot of you are going to head that way. This class is Intro to 2D. We'll notice the name of that, Intro. And, you're not usually as good at something when you're first introduced as you are a year later. But, I find her work inspiring. So anyway, if you want more help from Tiffany, she's still here. Here's her email address. Here's her current schedule. And, she's been leaving her Zoom open. So if you know the schedule, you could just click the link during those time slots. Or you could write her and ask her about it. Tiffany, do you want to add anything? Did anything change or?
Nothing changed. Every time I have 11 hours, it's just open,
Great. I appreciate that. The next semester, I'm going to show you work off earlier so people want your help more. People are like, what? I didn't know she could do that. This should have been asking. Anyway, I think next class, one thing I'd like to include is a tour of the best work of our class, of the homeworks. Just pull out, like do a best of show of what we did in this group. I do want to mention something to you kind of cool for those of you who've been enjoying lip syncing. We're going to do it again today, right? And I want to show you something kind of quickly because we're going to be working on the same audio. So I want to show you a sample of a guy reciting a poem. And I want to mention two things about this. The actor is very stuffy, really a very stuffy theater man, with the theater man behavior. And you could hear it all over him. So I kind of drew a guy that felt like that to me to recite the poem. Now, if you want to work more with lip syncing, just to practice the vice seams, we're going to do it today. But if you want to do it after today, one of the issues is I need audio, right? So some of you, are into it enough that you would want to record yourself. I often use Audacity for that. But that's obviously not part of this class. So sometimes it's nice just to have access to real high quality vocal performances that were already mixed in terms of the audio, cleaned up, high quality, they're already MP3s. So I want to share this with you before, so I don't forget. I included this link, a new discovery for me called poetryoutloud.org. And that's where today's poem actually came from. So you could go there, download all kinds of cool stuff. I don't know much about it, but I'm pretty sure it's straight up legal, although they wouldn't let you download it. They're professional actors reciting real poems, and some of them by very famous people. So I want to share something with you right now. Give me a second. Oh, I have too much stuff open. Sorry. All right. Just give me 1 second. Oh, you know what? Actually, I prepared this for you in advance. There we go. Let's take this guy for a spin. I'm going to open up as a Swift.
Fire and ice. Some say the world will end in fire. Some say in ice. From what I've tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But if I had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to say that for destruction, ice is also great and would suffice.
So it's kind of a wise guy poem by Robert Frost where he's really talking about mean things.
Fire and ice.
About the end of life.
Some say the world
I want to turn off
end
the
in
volume
fire.
for a minute and let him move because I want to say a couple things. So today we're working on that same poem, that same voice performance. You can see at the end of mine, I credited both the poet and the actor. I want to say a couple things about this though. One, the actor is enunciating every single sound. So it worked really well for me to work with mouth movement. You can really tell if it's working or it's not. He's not a mumbler. Some people talk like this. You can get away with murder animating a mouth like that. But this guy really had to be on point. So I kind of like that about it. The other thing I want to point out, because we may not have time to pursue it, is we're going to focus on eyes and mouth, unless we finish early. Because you look here and there, I've included other things. The eyebrows are moving, and you know, if we have time, we can get a look at the eyebrow layer for this guy because it's super simple, not a lot of animation, but it just gives a lot of mileage. He's talking about something scary. The eyebrows get a little, you know, angular, you know, mean looking, you know, wistful, and that just changes the character so much with real ease. I want to mention also for those of you who are, you know, greedy about emotion, you know, what else would make the mouth feel more realistic? It's all about the face, really. If the face is doing things that go with what the guy's saying, it's going to feel more realistic. For example, notice when he blinks, he leaves his eyes shut for a little while. You know, he's so poetic. He's going inward before he talks. You know, ah, yes, let me tell you about it. You know, so it's not just blinking. He's actually leaving the eyes closed. So I got the eyebrows to help his stuffy attitude. I got one short blink, one long blink. At one point, he raises his ears up and his whole face kind of raises up. Later on, he raises his shoulders. And all those things are all in response to what he's saying. So I want to tell you what I'm going to do today, though. We are going to use that audio, as I said. We're going to focus again on eyes blinking and moving, right? And I want to say more than I did last week about that subject. We're going to focus on the mouth. On your own, for those of you who are hungry, you should consider ear layers or eyebrow layers or however you want to go about seeing what you could do with the rest of the face just to make it more specific. I guess that's about it. Oh yeah, last thing I wanted to say. This is done without a drawing tablet. So I just want to say something to the entire class. A lot of people feel like, gee, I would have done so much better in this class if I had a drawing tablet. That might be true, but it might not be true. Because what winds up happening is you might have spent the whole semester just getting involved with drawing, which is super important. But you know, here we are to talk about motion. Also, I don't want anyone to feel like you have to wait to have money to get better at this. I have a drawing tablet. I just choose not to use it about half the time, right? So I'm going to share with you techniques today that made this possible with my little mouse pad on my laptop. All right. Hey, does anybody have any questions about this? Anything specific? Do you want to see a given layer or anything like that before I leave it behind? No? All right.
I want to ask about the eyes.
So it goes. I'm going to put this guy aside. I just want to get a look at the handout, make sure I didn't forget anything important, and then we're going to run into, go right ahead.
Ooh.
All right, folks. Those of you who come late every week, I doubt you're watching the beginning of class on YouTube video. Don't be shocked unless you're reading the handout closely. There are deadlines and all kinds of important things, and I'm not going to be hearing excuses next week, except from people that I see, or you know, regularly that I know that they're involved. Extra credit's still open. All right, I want to get started, but I do want to say something about these steps. Since you did this last week, I believe someone could actually do this whole thing just following this handout. It's very detailed, but it's only one order. It's only one set of possibilities. So, you know, your idea is to get comfortable enough so that you know what's essential, and then you can improvise. You can just change everything. I'm going to change a couple things today, just so we have some comparison. All right, let's get started. All right, if everyone would open Animate. Oh, wait a second, guys. We need the assets. Can't do lip syncing without the audio, and we have some other stuff that we need. So if you haven't done it already, some of you may have, please get today's assets. As always, there's two ways to get it. Where are they? Or you can get it right from the handout, or you can get it from the homepage also. Class 14 assets. Once you have them loaded, please open it. These are simple assets today, very similar to last week. We had no issues last week. A second here. I'd like for you, I'm just trying to clean up after myself. There we go. I'd like you to find your assets, which are in downloads. You could tell I have multiple copies here, so because I was taking a look at it this morning. And if you're in the habit of moving that folder somewhere, of course, it's completely up to you. Please do it now. And go and get it. 2D class 14 assets. We'll come back and look at these, but I just want to quickly remind you, these are the same charts of mouth shapes that we had last week. Here's a cartoon one, which is really helpful because it helps you really feel it. You know, really the best way to feel it is imitate the mouth movement. Go and see why this artist drew it this way. Here's a more discrete one, more subtle kind of mouth. This is actually 3D stuff, but it looks like photography. It's also kind of nice. And this is
and ice.
the audio. All right, just keep that where you can get it. We're not ready yet. You just wanted it prepared. All right. All right, let's go to animate and click create new or file menu new as you prefer. I'm going to stick again with a standard size, 640, 480, and critically the frame rate of 24. This would really break everything I want to talk about if you're going to run at a different speed. Okay, get yourself comfortable. Make sure you can see all four walls of your stage. And I'd like to begin with the head shape. So I'm going to ask you to draw a head shape with me. And I want to say a couple quick things. You know, a couple of you, I think Joseph, I think you and a couple other people mostly have taken a real interest in object mode versus the default merge mode, right? It really, to tell you, the more you play with each, you see what the advantage is. I want to say something about merge mode for a little bit, and then I'm probably going to switch to object mode. So if you got the oval tool with me, right, before you use it, you want to check this feature here that lets you know if you're in object mode or not, or the property palette where it's here. On my property palette, it's easier to see. If it's light, you're in merge mode, which means, as you might recall, hang on a second there. Shapes, hang on one second. I want to undo this. Which means if you choose this tool, you know, I have to tell you something that just happened. I'm a little surprised by it. Over here, it says I have no stroke. And over here, it says that I do. Isn't that odd? Right? So I'm going to trust this one on the right. I'm going to turn that stroke off. Remember, in merge mode, you can merge shapes. Now, if I want to use that feature to make my head, I just make sure I'm in merge mode before I go further, right? So right now I'm making sure that I'm in merge mode just to make my point, right? You choose the oval tool, right? Come over here, make sure this is light, not dark. And I want to give you an example of the kind of things I might do. I might say, start with this shape, and then maybe switch to this shape, a rectangle tool, if I wanted to give him a squarish head. You know, I could start there. This is now one shape, right? So I just want to make a point. If you want to work just with an oval right now, that's fine. If you want to merge shapes to give a more specific kind of head, see what you could do. Remember, if they don't have strokes, once you turn on merge mode, by the way, all the tools are in merge mode. So you don't have to keep checking. Now, I'd like you to come up with a head of your own, right? And remember that the black arrow can be helpful to make changes. Right? I would definitely stick mostly with the black arrow, unless you're a big fan of the white arrow, which is also very cool. You could actually see anchor points, you know, make a different level of decisions. But I would merge them and then get busy with the black arrow right now. You know, what do you want to do to it? You know, it depends what kind of face you want. I like this. All right. I'd also like you to get it up to a reasonable size. So I'm switching to the free transform tool for a minute. I want him to be kind of large because he's definitely going to be, you know, mostly about the head today. Okay. I'm assuming that that's easy for everybody, right? So I want to say something about this. You know, I could freeze dry that right now. You know, I'd move it into object mode or even just make it a symbol. I'm just not sure what I want of it just yet, so I'm going to leave it be. All right. Now, about color before we go into the other layers. Could everyone set themselves a stage color so that you could make some wise decisions about everything else? So again, if you want to set the stage color, just make sure you don't have anything selected. If nothing's selected, you should be able to come right over to the right on your properties palette and see this. You won't see it if something's selected, but you will if nothing's selected. So just choose a color. Remember, this guy's doing this stuffy poem about fire and ice. He's essentially talking about, like, you know, either the end of the world or something dramatic like that. So it depends how you want to look at it. I'm avoiding blues only because when I select things, in some cases you'll see blue outlines. I want to make sure that you guys can see what I'm doing. All right. If you want to change your head color, please do it now. You know, I'm really fond of impossible head colors and wildly racially ambiguous characters. So I often draw characters where you just can't say, you know, what kind of person this is, because I just, you know, enjoy doing that, especially in a diverse culture like we have in New York City and in the United States. It's really up to you. I'm gonna make an orange guy today. All right, what I'd like you to do next is make another layer. And I want to say a little bit about the eyes today that I didn't say last week. You know, if you have total recall, you might remember last week I asked you to make a circle and we saved it as a graphic symbol and we called it something like eye, right? Inside the graphic symbol, we put a lid on it, a lower lid, pupil, all the details. But let's say you just don't want a whole circle for your eye because you don't really ever see anyone's whole circle, right? You see a rather elliptical kind of shape. There's more than one way you can draw it. I want to show you a way that I didn't mention last week. And I'd like you to join me just to see if you like it. All right. So make sure you're on the upper layer, that you just made a new layer, guys, because if you don't watch layers, you can't do this, right? In fact, let's rename the lower layer. Let's get clear. I'd like you to call it head shape. It isn't the head, it's just the shape. That's the lower layer, and then lock it. That's the lower layer with the head on it. See, I'm hiding it, showing it. So name it and lock it. I'd like you to go to the layer that you just made above it and simply call it eye. Don't lock that one. So this is what your layer should look like, what I have in the lower left. Make sure the upper one is highlighted, and I'm going to go get the oval tool again. I'm going to start with white. So I got my oval tool. I'm going to go to the fill box and choose white. If you think you want a stroke, go ahead and give it one. It's up to you. And I could even give it some details if I want. Let's see how that goes. I'm going to put the eye roughly where I expect it to land. Now, I don't really like that shape, and I knew that I wouldn't. I'm doing this to make a point, though. Watch this. If I want that oval to have a pointier inside and outside, there's a great way I could do it with the black arrow. This is something from week 1, and we haven't used it in a long time, so I want to mention it to you now. You all know that the black arrow will let me reshape it, right? But it's still going to be round there, and there's nothing wrong with using the black arrow right now if you want, right? But I want to show you a trick about the black arrow. If you hold down Option on a Mac or Alt on Windows and go to the edge of the shape, it'll come out as a point, right? So if you do it without Option or Alt, it's round. But if you do want a point, just hold down Option or Alt while you do it. And it's a quick way. You know, a lot of people reach right for the pen tool for this kind of thing, but this is a nice way to do it. Please do not draw the rest of the eye, right? Don't draw the rest of it. We're not even close to ready, right? So this is what I'd like you to do now, though. I want you to take that eye that's just the shape, the color that the whites of the eye, and we're not talking about the pupil or any of that, or the eyelid even, right? And I want you to select it. And it's important that you select the whole thing. So in other words, don't accidentally just select a fill, right? If you have a stroke, you're gonna need to double click. I want you to make it a graphic symbol right away. You know, all the facial parts that we're gonna use, 2 of them really need to be graphic symbols, the eye and the mouth. The rest, there's a lot of freedom about how you look at it. But the eye really does need to, and you'll see quickly why that is, as well as the mouth. So select that, control click it, and say convert to symbol. Be sure it's graphic, and just call it eye. Now I'm not ready to work on the eye yet, but I am ready to copy it, right? I want the other eye. So I'm going to use the black arrow and copy it now. So I'm holding down Option and dragging it. On Windows, I could hold down Alt. Now, give me a moment to explain this. When we go in and make that eye blink and make the pupil look back and forth, both eyes are going to update, right? It's just a clever strategy. We're just not going to have to repeat stuff. We're going to draw one eye and they're both going to be looking around, blinking, it's beautiful. All right, it's a little different than how we did it last week, but kind of similar. All right, so you could lock that layer for now. We're going to come back. I'd like you to make another layer. And I'm going to call this nose. And I'd like you to draw a nose. I just want to say a couple quick words about drawing the nose. If your head is not going to turn, because you might remember when we were doing turnarounds, we really had to think about how different the nose is in the front and the side. And we wanted to come up with a style that's easy to interpret. But frankly, if it's all front view, you could draw it any way you want, right? So I'm going to draw it a couple different ways. I think I'm going to get the pencil tool first. And I'm coming over here to check it out. I think I'm going to draw with a line. So here's the pencil tool draws with the stroke color. So I'm setting that up. I'm going to leave it at black. I got a 2-point stroke right now. And I can control that here. And over here is where the cool lines are. If you want a cool shape like I have on the eyes. All right. So I'm going to just draw myself a simple nose. And that could be enough. It's up to you how you want to do it. If you don't like your nose, maybe you want to smooth it. Select it with the black arrow. And at the very bottom of the toolbar, bottom of the properties palette, you'll see smoothing. You can click that a few times. I kind of like the way mine came out, so I'm going to leave it. By the way, if you want to go further, draw it any way you want. Like, I'm going to put a little shadow under the nose right now, which gives me a chance to remind you of my favorite pencil tool technique. I'm going to want to put a shadow here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cross the nose and make a shape where I'd like the shadow. And it did some funky stuff, but I'll deal with that later, right? And now I'm going to fill this with a color. And then I might take the black out. So all I have to do if I want a shape that I could fill is make sure it's close, that I don't see any gaps. All right. So I'm going to get to the paint bucket now, and I want to start with orange, but get myself a darker color. So I'm going to use the eyedropper, and I'm going to click on the color of the face. But since I want a darker one, right, I'm going to have to open up my colors. I'm going to click on the fill box. So I use the eyedropper to borrow color. I'm going to double click the fill box, or just single click the fill box. Now, this was also kind of new. We used it a couple times, but I never made a big deal out of it. I already have the orange, but I want a darker one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here. There are other ways to get to colors in this program, right? But I'm going to do it here. This little rainbow circle will let me see where that color stands related to other options. And perhaps coolest is this slider, where I could go ahead and make it darker. If I wanted it to be redder, I could move to the left. Yellower, I could move to the right. This is just about making it dark. Let me make it just a little darker. Now remember, I started this with the eyedropper, and it automatically switches to the paint bucket. I'm just going to click in there. Right now, I'm taking a little detour and discussing line drawing versus drawing with fills. And I'm actually doing both. I got a line drawing for the nose, which was enough, but I felt like putting a shadow there. So I needed to fill the shadow. It's not a line thing. So I just made sure I had a closed shape because it's very easy to pour color in. If I don't want this black line, I'll go back, I'll get my black arrow, select it, and delete it. I got the shadow under the nose. I want to see what this little thing is. That's a little weird. I don't really like that. And I just clicked it till I really got it and deleted it. Anything can be smooth, I might add. So I could select my shadow and smooth it. So you just select stuff with the black arrow if you want to smooth it. And I think I kind of like it. I'm going to keep it. All right, let's lock that layer. I want you to draw a neutral mouth with me. Now again, if you didn't come last class, you had to watch the video. This is not a passable class, skipping anything, all right? And that means you already know what a viseam is and that we're going to draw a lot of mouth shapes. The first mouth shape is neutral. This is neutral for me. I know some people that are smilers, so neutral for them is still like this. But in 2020, it's more common to see neutral look like this. It's up to you. I'm going to go with like flat out neutral. Now, again, the mouth gives you some freedom. So I've been, I'm going to draw, actually focus on an upper lip for a minute. So I'm going to make my new layer. Don't forget that. Call it mouth. This is going to be probably the most important layer today. Right? And while I'm on that layer, I'm going to start with the pencil tool, which has really been the star of the show for me lately. I'm zooming in with Command plus, zooming out with Command minus, and I'm focusing on the upper lip. I'm going to make his mouth kind of big because I really want to focus on what he's saying. And if I, lose it along the way, I could finish that line, but I don't really like that look, right? Since I'm using a fancy line over here. So if it's too hard for me to get the whole thing, I might zoom out. Just gives since I'm using a touchpad, it gives my finger less traveling to do. If I'm zoomed in, my finger's got to drag several inches, so I'll often back up. I'm going to cross this shape to make sure I'm producing a closed shape. This is one of my favorite things about the program. That if I do cross lines, I know I could definitely fill it after. I'm going to clean this up a little though. So I'm getting my black arrow and I'm clicking some of this weird stuff that shows up when you use fancy lines like the one I'm using. And it just lets you click right. If you're careful, you can get right on that extra stuff. And then I'm going to use my black arrow to change the shape a little, perfect it. And when I'm happy with it, I'm going to select it one more time, see if I want to smooth it or not. Straightening might give you a cool look, but that's not what I want. It's up to you. I'm going to see about smoothing. That was weird. I clicked smooth and it just filled up like that. I don't want to fight with it, and I'm happy with it anyway. I want to say something about lips that I've said a couple times before. In most lighting situations, the upper lip is darker. We're so used to seeing each other in Zoom where it's not always true because the light from the monitor is coming up and lighting my lower lip. But most of the time, it's the light above someone that creates a shadow in the lower lip. So I'm actually going to fill it. I happen to have the shadow fill color, but if I didn't, I get my eyedropper, click a nearby shadow, it automatically becomes the paint bucket and I can pour it. I just want to say again, the eyedropper is so cool. You choose a color and it becomes the bucket so you could fill stuff. And then I decide whether I want this black stroke anymore. I'm going to try taking out the top. I'm going to leave it like that. All right, what about the lower lip? You'll see cartoonists not use lips at all sometimes, or they'll have a, very prominent lower lip. In my case, I'm going to just use a shadow under the lower lip. And again, it's up to you just make sure, listen, let's keep this much in mind. Stay simple, because you're going to need to change this shape, for all the different sounds. Right? So don't get too complicated with this. All right, I'm going to make a little shadow. So I'm getting back to the pencil tool. And I'm kind of imagining a little bit what shape that might take. I could just leave that. That actually works kind of nicely. But, I'm going to go with the other technique I've been pushing on people. I'm going to close it and get my paint bucket, which already has the color I need. Then I'll go back. I'll get my black arrow and take out what I don't want, unless I don't want them at all. There's my shadow. I'm kind of curious whether I need to make that darker. And if I do, I'll just open up my colors and click this circle. That looks a little better. I want to say a couple things about ears. I have to say, I've done ears different ways. If I want someone crazy expressive with their ears, I'm going to give them their own layer. If I don't expect to do a lot of work with the ears, I'll fuse them with the head. So I guess just so we can have the choice, I'm going to make an ears layer. And if you like that idea, join me. I'm going to make ears. I'm going to put them both in one layer, ears. And I'm going to start with the, I don't know, I want to stick with the pencil tool. I think I'll stick with the pencil tool. Now, if you're locking the layers as you go, and your new layer is the only one that isn't locked, you could draw however you want, and you're not going to damage the stuff beneath it. It's fine. So I'm kind of imagining what kind of ears I might want this guy to have. But if I want to fill that, I do have to close it. I want the orange of his head. So I'm going to use the eyedropper again, pick that color, and just pour it in the air. So the one of the things I keep pushing on you is the idea of closing as many shapes as you can, if you're going to want to fill it. In all cases, you can go back with the black arrow and take out what you don't want. And that looks like it's on the head, right? Because I don't have a stroke around it. I could draw the other ear by hand, but we're short for time. So I'm just going to copy it, flip it, and drag it over. So option dragging is copying, and I think everybody's sort of got used to that by now. I'm going to option drag it to make a copy, flip it by control clicking on it. Now, this is hard to remember. We actually did a lot of this when we were doing turnarounds. But I'm going to select the new ear. I'm going to control click, and I'm going to use transform. I control click to get the menu because I want to flip horizontal. So I just want to do that one more time. I'm selecting the first ear. Let me just move that over. And option dragging. While it's selected, I control click it to get the menu. And I'm going to use transform, flip horizontal. By the way, if that feels like too many steps for you, you could just do it this way. Get the transform tool, grab a handle and flip it yourself. You guys don't ask a lot of questions, and that's okay. But does anyone have any questions about the ear or any of the last steps? So, I want to just focus for a moment on two things we've been doing. We've been thinking in our layers as best we can. Often you change your mind about your strategy, but you really want to do your best. It helps a lot to name them. Lazy people don't name them, and they're just terrible animators, Can't be a lazy animator. But on top of that, if you don't name it, you're going to get really lost. So I name layers and lock them as I go. Name and lock, name and lock. And this way I don't worry about destroying something I already worked hard on. The other thing I'm pointing out is I'm focusing on the pencil tool a lot. And there's two reasons. Anytime you create a closed shape, because it's got borders somehow on the same layer, I could fill it with color, and that's really good. The other reason I like it is smoothing. It's really helped me deal with the fact that I'm not using a tablet right now. All right, I'm going to lock that layer. If you want to add hair, right? I like hair on its own layer because my hairline's too far back to appreciate it anymore. But people, I don't know, you can't really see it on me. But some people, you see their whole hairline move when they're being expressive. I'm an eyebrow guy. My eyebrows move a lot, but often the hairline moves. So it's up to you. I would, if you want hair, I would make a layer for it. I'm going to make a quick hair layer just to be thorough. Hair. Everything else is locked. Hair is not. And again, I'm going to go with pencil tool techniques. This guy's blocky head looks like hair already. But I think I'm going to just kind of imagine, a little variation on it. And again, if you don't like drawing in one line, let go. And then it's probably best to cross it later so you don't leave a gap. The paint bucket and all the fill features they just don't like gaps. So I'm always drawing different kinds of hairdos. I'm literally winging this. And I make sure I close it. All right. Now, I don't really want to borrow any of these colors, so I'm going to just click in my fill box here and think, what color hair do I want this guy to have? I really don't know. I'm going to start with a guess and then get my paint bucket and pour it in there. If you want to smoothen it or straighten it, get your black arrow. Since I have a fill and a stroke, I'm going to double click it. And I'm curious to see what straighten would do. Ooh, that's kind of fun. Really choppy hairdo. I'm clicking it a few times. Do I like it? I don't know if I like it, but I'm going to keep it for today. And you could always grab parts and adjust them. And give him black hair. How is everybody? Prep. This is slow stuff. Tiffany, one thing that I love about your work is, gosh, do you spend a lot of time drawing? I mean, really, just the landscape, for those of you who were here and saw her walk cycle earlier today, this whole Candyland background there, that looked like so much work to me. And a lot of beautiful animations are like that. And some of you guys are very prepared for that. That's what you like to watch. So you have to be prepared for the amount of workload. I'm hoping some of you guys know Little Bill, and I bring it up mostly because I love the economy of it. That old show, it's still on YouTube. You could find episodes. Those artists always found ways to be beautiful with as little work as they could possibly come up with. And yet it was elegant. It was really elegant. I think Little Bill, it wasn't a big animation for detail, and just a little bit more speedy, but speed is really up to the artist in a sense, or the environment you're working in. All right. We better save this. All right. And I'm going to save right away. I'm going to do File, Menu, Save. It would have been much smarter if I had made a folder. So I think I am going to save to the folder I downloaded earlier today. So just to be clear, I put mine on the desktop. So I'm going to save mine into 2D Class 14 assets. Right. And this way, when I make a GIF later or a video later, or Swifts, they're all going to show up in one place. I don't have to look around my messy computer. You can call it whatever you want. I'm going to call mine Blink and Talk, and with the date. And I'm going to click save. You save it however you want to save it. Now, we want to get busy with some animation, right? And it took a while to prepare our features. And the way I have it laid out, just about everything is on its own layer. So if I really want to get wild with it, have the ears move while he talks, and it looks like I've got a lot of freedom. Also, I turned off object mode early. So really all this stuff is mergeable. I only used it for the head shape. The rest, I didn't really use the merging feature a hell of a lot. I keep changing my mind when I need merge and when I don't. Right. Last week we did a lot with object mode, I think. Right now, anyway, we're working with merge. I'd like you to double check your layers before we go further. And this is what I mean by that. I don't, it's going to be really hard if anything's accidentally on the wrong layer. So if you go down to your layers, I could hide them all with this big eye, but I don't want to do that. I can go in that same column and hide the hair. Okay, that's on the right layer. Hide the ears. All right, that's good. Hide the mouth. I'm still in good shape. Hide the nose, right? Hide the eyes, and hide the head shape. So I know everything's where it should be. Now look, if you have something on the wrong layer, ask me now. I want to tell you how to fix it. It's not hard to move stuff between layers, but it takes a little know-how. We're good? Thank you. All right. So let's get busy. I think I want to start on the eye, right? So your layers should be all locked. And then I'd like you to unlock the eye layer. I want to add one little thing though before we get busy with the eye. I don't like the order of my layers. They're working fine. But I like to work top down. So here's the hair. I think I'd like the eyes underneath it. Then I'd like the nose, because I just wanted to imitate the face. It just makes it easier for me to think. Then the mouth. I think I'm going to leave the ears down here. They don't really have any particular, I'm not as finicky about those. Something, guys? I want to mention one last thing, though. Look at my eyebrows. Don't I look earnest? I want to mention something. Hey, are you listening? All right, I don't look so earnest. So really, like, if you want your voice, your person to feel more believable, maybe we want a brow layer. I'm going to make a fast brow layer and come back to the eyes. This is optional, folks, this part. I'm going to temporarily lock my eye layer. I'm going to make a layer above it and call it brows. And I'm going to use the pencil tool techniques from today to make myself some brows. And I'm going to fill that some black. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit and perfect it. Use my black arrow and change that shape a little bit. I didn't bother to make it perfect because I knew I was going to do this. I want to back up a bit, see what that looks like. I'm not crazy about it. I'm going to smooth it a bit. So I click it with the black arrow, smooth it. Spend a little time getting it right. I think that's pretty cool. I could draw another one, or I could option drag it and flip it. I'm going to go and use the free transform tool to flip it. Seems like the easiest. I grab one side and I literally just flip it over by hand. Oops. For the record, they don't have to be the same because people's eyebrows are not symmetrical. Models usually are, and in fact, in the modeling industry, it's often been said that it's mostly about the fact that both sides of the head are identical, not really how beautiful they are. Because most of us are kind of wonky. You get disturbed the first time you realize how uneven your face is, but that's humanity by and large. So again, if you want symmetry, you could do it. Otherwise, get a little loose. All right, save again as you go. File menu, save. Are we ready to work on the eye? Any response? Do you guys want another couple of minutes? You could chat us, turn on your mic, or of course you could be deadly silent.
Give us a few minutes, Professor.
Mr. wants another few minutes.
Excellent, excellent. Thanks, guys, for asking. When you ask, you often get what you ask for. When you don't ask, you never get. Never get it. So thanks for asking. I don't mind. So while you're drawing, I'm just gonna, say a couple things about it. So, the drawing prep time could go on for hours, right? It really kind of depends on what you want. I'm limiting my amount of shading right now. I have shadowy lips and stuff, but by and large, I didn't really do much shading. I often will go back and do that. I'm not giving him individual hairs or anything like that, or stubble of a beard. This could just keep on going. Right now, I'm really advocating for very simple approaches to you could focus on motion, realism in terms of how people move, and those kinds of things. So the eye is a subject in itself, and we spent some time last week, and you might remember it's a two-part show. It's making him blink and making the eye move. And the blinking is often dominated by the upper lid. So this week, I'm not even going to draw a lower lid. Right? We're just going to skip the lower lid, because the upper lid really is what we need. And a lot of people, you can't even see their lower lid unless they close their eyes for any length of time. If they're just blinking, it's so that's the way I'm going to go with it. So those of you who are drawing masterpieces, man, do I respect that. I could tell from the homework that some of you, the majority of the time is the drawing, and others, the majority is motion. And right now, we are going to have to move ahead, though. Okay, so lock your layers and unlock the eye layer. And I'm going to ask you to pick either of the eyes because it doesn't matter too much. Remember, you made these a graphic symbol. I want you to double check that that's true because the rest won't work. So select your eye. One, if you're not seeing little dots on it, you probably made a symbol out of it. But if you want to be ultra sure, you click it once and you take a look on the properties palette. The properties palette will probably automatically choose the tab called object. And right beneath it, it'll tell you if your object's a graphic and even what it's called if you named it. So if I click another shape, I'm going to unlock for a minute just to make my point. The properties palette here does not say symbol or a name because I never did make that into a symbol. The eye has to be. So I'm going to check that it is. If it isn't, make it a symbol now. Control click it, right click it, convert to symbol, because you can't do the eye otherwise. All right. I have to assume that you made that eye a graphic symbol. Now we're going to work inside the symbol in symbol editing mode. Folks, since I'm not going to see you soon we're going to part ways, I want to mention two different ways to see symbol editing mode. Can you guys watch this? If I go to the library and double click the symbol, I could work on it in space. I don't see the head. I'm going to come up to the upper left and click this back arrow in the upper left corner. So that's what happens if I double click it in the library. But if I double click it on stage, I could see it in reference to the rest of the head. So I totally prefer you double clicking it on stage in this case. Now you're inside symbol editing mode, so everything else looks kind of milky. And in the upper left, it says the name of your symbol, right? We're going to make a bunch of layers in here, so I want to make sure everybody's with me. You check that your eye is a graphic symbol, and then you double click one of the eyes on stage, right? Now you notice your other layers seem to have disappeared, right? There's just one layer in here, and I want to get busy with it, right? So I'd like you to call this layer eye shape. Now, above it, I want you to make a new layer, and let's call it pupil, etc., or maybe iris, etc., which the color is actually the iris, isn't it? So I'm going to go with that, iris, etc., because I want the color of the eye, I want the black dot that the pupil is, and I'm even going to add a highlight. So there's going to be three shapes in there to work with. I want to say something quickly now. This is one of those moments when I always stop and think, gee, should I make these as objects? Because if I make them as objects, I could move the iris to get it right. I could move the pupil. But if I'm in merge mode and I move it, they're going to leave holes behind. You know, so it really is a personal preference. I'm going to go ahead with object mode right now, right? And we'll see how it goes. So this is the first time I'm switching back. I'm going to get the oval tool because I'm on my brand new iris layer, right? And I'm going to go ahead and pick a color for his eyes. And of course, I could change it later. Just want a good start. I don't think I want a stroke on it, so I'm going to click the stroke box and pick color, stroke of none. And I'm going to draw the color. Notice it shows up in the other eye. If you do want a perfect circle, just hold down Shift while you're dragging the circle. Hey, wait a second. I didn't turn on object mode. It doesn't matter much, but I'm going to Command Z. Here's my oval tool. If I want to work in object mode, I click this button. It's a little clearer on the property palette. Down means you're in object mode. Light means you're in merge mode. Look, I know a couple of you have embraced this, but most of you have not. I just want to repeat something about the difference. In either case, you could change color easily. In either case, you could change the shape easily, right? But in object mode, you can't merge it with other shapes. And you also don't have to worry about accidental merging. You know, like putting a black pupil on there and then changing your mind and leaving a hole, right? They could both change their own shape, but it's just whether they can merge with others or not, right? So I just chose to put myself in object mode, so it's a little darker, right? And I'm going to try it again. I just want to double check something with my black arrow. So if I select it with the black arrow now, because I'm in object mode, you see a blue box around it. It looks just like the symbol. All right, I'm going to deselect it. Get the oval tool again and choose some black. You know, this is a made up person, so I don't really have to do that. Oops. Just want to make sure that I'm still in object drawing mode. Give me a second here. Something odd just happened. This is going behind it, which it really shouldn't do if it's also an object. Strange. All right. So I guess I have to mention this. Object mode objects have a stacking order, right? This new one I expected to go on top. Oh, I just see what happened. Did you guys spot my error already? It's actually on screen share. It happened because I'm on the wrong layer. I'm accidentally on the lower layer. Okay, no big deal. Let me just take that out. I'm gonna lock that lower layer because I'm done with it for the moment. I'm coming up to the upper layer, iris, etc. And it'll be a little bit easier for me. Now I can move it around because I'm not in merge mode. That's the only reason I made this decision. I wanted the freedom to be able to do that. I could move it around even though they're sharing a layer. I'm going to go ahead and do one more. I'm still in object mode. I never changed it. Let me get some white and just add a little highlight. So we only have 2 layers in there because I want to keep it neat. I'm going to need to move those 3 ovals I just made together, you know, when he looks to the sides, right? So it's important. Also, the fact that you made the original eye a graphic symbol is why the other eye just keeps magically showing up, right? We saved ourselves a tremendous amount of work, right? All right, I've got my 2 layers, and what I also want is the eyelid layer, right? Because the blinking is going to depend on that. So I'm just going to make an upper lid layer today. It's a little bit simpler than last time on this time, and I think more elegant. So I'm going to make one more layer, and I'm going to call it upper lid. Wait a second. Do I really want to do that? Give me a minute. Yeah, I think I do. I'm going to make an upper lid layer. There are other ways to do it, so I'm always asking myself. And I'm going to lock the others. About the upper lid, right? I'm going to do my best to actually work with the shape that the eye already has, right? And it might take a couple minutes. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going back to the pencil tool, and I'm going to draw a big arc here. I'm doing my best. If I have to stop, I'll stop. I don't really want to, you know. And to tell you the truth, really, this feature's a nuisance sometimes. I often try to switch back to plain lines. It doesn't always do it, but it's a little bit easier when I just don't want to be distracted. I'm backing up because it'll make it a little easier. And only because my finger has less distance to travel. I know it's not right yet, but that's fine. It really is, right? I'm going to cross it to make the lid, but if I want to negotiate this line first, here's a few choices. Switch to the black arrow. You could grab ends and stretch them out or shorten them. You could pull parts of it. You could smooth it if you want. Just select the whole line to do that. You know, but let me get back here. I'm getting too complicated. You know, by the way, I'm in object mode for that line, and that's going to be a problem. I'm kind of glad that happened, even though it's less elegant, because I want you to see this problem with me than see it on your own. I want to draw the lid with that crossing lines technique, but I'm not in merge mode. You know, that whole technique only works because your lines are merging with each other, right? So I made a mistake, right? So if you're with me on this, right, we need to break that apart. We need to say, oh, don't be an object, okay? You know, I'm sorry for the level of complexity of it. There's 2 ways to change your mind if you have an object and you wish it was still in merge mode. It's called break apart. It's so common that there's a shortcut, Command B, and I use it all the time, Command B. But if you don't like shortcuts, I want to show you this. Already, if I select it and I look in the properties palette, I could see this is to create an object. Well, this is already an object. And to the right, it says break apart, right? That's a more recent addition to the program, a button for break apart. I'm just going to use Command B. I click it, Command B, see the little dots, I'm back in merge mode. I'm sorry that got a little complicated. I hope I didn't lose anybody. I'm going back to the pencil tool now, and I'm going to cross it. Yikes. I'm going to back up and do that again. That's a little closer. So now I'm going to clean it up. I want to get reasonably close. Make sure that, oh, I made the same mistake again. So we know how to fix it. Command B. I'm going to click off. Those lines have merged now. I want to prove something to you for a minute. Right? If I hide the other layers, that's what that looks like. I crossed. If they're both have dots, they've merged. I just want to mention what I should have done once I realized it was a problem would be get whatever tool I want and turn off object mode. I should have just released the button. Right? But because I didn't do that, I'm doing all this merging. Right. All right, I want to do a little bit more with the eye before we break. So I'm cleaning it up. If I want to smooth it, I can now double click to get the whole thing. And the smooth button comes up. I could deselect it and manually make changes. Right, I'm going to bring my layers back so you can see them all. And I can make it match. It's really up to you how closely they match. If you really need them to match closer than what I've got going here, right? This could be a little messy. I want to back away. All right, what about filling it? Well, it could be the exact skin color, and it'll have some people with very shallow features. Their eyes are so flush with the head you barely see the eyelid. It could be the exact color. It could be a little bit darker, right? Right now, I'm not sure if my eyedropper is going to behave though. I'm going to get the eyedropper and click here because this might give me a milkier version of the color that I want. We'll have to find out. If I like this color, I could fill it now. Right? If I want a slightly darker color, I could click the fill box again and get that little circle. It gives me all these cool choices. I want to show you guys something for a minute. Right? So that's the current look of this guy, by himself. And there's tweaking I can do, but I'm fairly happy with it. I'm going to keep it. All right, folks. I want to just recap a couple of basic ideas. The eye itself has these 3 layers, and it's hard for me to imagine anything much simpler than this. I am very attracted to extremely minimal cartoons, though. I've seen people do the entire eye as just a dot. And a blink is the dot caving in. It's like all pupil, but it's very clever and it could really work. It would just be one layer, and I sort of admire that. I know a lot of you guys are interested in the drawing aspect of it, so we're going a notch deeper. Remember, though, even for us, the strokes are up to you whether you want them or not. In this case, I could take one of them off, give him feel like a shadow under his eye. I could take them both off, right? It's also a very nice look, right? They're really lots of choices. All right, please say what you have. I'm thinking we should probably break before we get into the heavy motion, right? Because it's going to take a while. Get a quick look at my handout for a second. Yeah, let's definitely break. We're going to break till 11, right? So could everybody please make sure you've saved before you take that break, right? Does anyone have any question for me right, now before we break, while you clear about it? No, you're all good? So look, we're starting again at 11. But I want to tell you something. I'm okay with you screen sharing. Every time I ask, everyone's too shy. No one ever wants to do it. But especially if you're having an issue, you know, you don't have to admit. I don't know. Animators are at school have always been lone wolves. Even when I walked around the room, a lot of students were like, "Rrr, "I need a protective bubble. Don't come too close." But I'm assuming you're all right. All right, guys, we're resuming at 11. I'll see you all at 11. All right, don't be late. All right, we're gonna get busy with that blinking and eye moving. All right. Now, so, am I recording now?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Hey, so this is exactly where I left off anyway before the break, so it's natural enough. All right, so we were discussing these three layers, and we're going to be doing a lot of stuff with the upper lid layer and the iris layer, but the shape itself, the eye shape, is done, right? So I'm just going to lock it. All right, I think I want to work with the iris next. So I want to talk to you about something. You know, one thing that I'm really rethinking lately is what does someone do really with that part of the eye while they're talking to you? Do they stare at you the whole time? Have you ever talked to somebody who looks right at you the whole time? It's kind of weird, especially if they don't blink. It's a little more natural if they blink, but it's still not natural because the human eye is always going to wander left and wander right, just a little bit. And my own opinion about that is because we're largely defensive creatures, right? So we're always kind of looking around a little bit, subconsciously checking out the area. People don't look natural otherwise. But I've had this habit of making them look too far to the right and too far to the left, which makes my characters look nervous all the time, right? So today, I think I'm just going to have it look a little left and a little right. It's not going to go far. The other thing that I noticed from observing people, is this. When they're looking forward, you generally rest there longer. You made a choice. By then, you've moved your head over there and, you're cool. So when you look to the right, it's not as long. Look to the left, not very long. Because if it was interesting, you would have turned your head. See what I'm saying? So I'm just noticing the nuances of eye behavior. And this is what I'm going to point out. Usually people don't look in the corners of their eyes. They just go a little left, a little right. When they're in the middle, they pause the longest. And that's something I'd like to see if we could take advantage of it now. Okay. First off, we got to figure out how long this whole eye timeline ought to be. If I want them to look left and I want them to look middle, I want them to look right, it's going to take some time. Also, people blink maybe once every 3 to 4 seconds. And I'd like to have at least 2 blinks. So even if we went, say, 7 seconds to compromise, I said 3 or 4 seconds per blink. So let's say 7 seconds as a total for 2, right? Well, let's go out to 7 seconds. I would like you to join me on this. So you're inside your eye symbol. You're going out to 7 seconds, right? Roughly, doesn't have to be exact. And I want you to F5 each layer. Be sure not to F6, okay? Because we're not copying artwork there. We're just giving them more time. There's 3 layers in my eye symbol, and I'm F5ing all 3. Then I'd like you to come all the way back to the beginning. So that was an estimate of 7 seconds because I want the guy to blink twice. All right. I want to lock the upper lid and the eye shape so we could focus on the iris a bit. Listen, I got to tell you something. I'm having a little debate with myself because there's 2 ways we could do it. We could do it without tweening. And since his eye's not going far, he won't look too shifty. The eye's just going to be here, back, here, back. If we wanted to tweet, it actually does that. It's a subtle difference, right? But I'd have to put a symbol in the symbol. I want to tell you why I say that. Remember, this is really 3 shapes. I went into object mode for this one feature, right? And if I want these to tween, they have to be a graphic symbol specifically, right? So I think I'm going to keep it simpler and just do it more like a frame by frame approach. So this is what I'd like you to do. He's looking forward out of 7 seconds. I'd like his eyes to stay where they are for about 2 seconds. So on the iris level, could you find 2 seconds? So that's frame 48, or roughly. And I want you to F6 it to copy the keyframe there. So we copied the art. Now what I'm basically saying is, before that, he's looking forward. At the 2 second mark, I'm going to move the eye to the left. So we used F6 to copy the last keyframe at the 2 second mark in the iris layer. Then just move it a little bit to the left. And by the way, I'm going to move it down a little too. If I do that, as his eyes move, they're going to move on an arc. And it's a round eyeball, right? So at the 2 second mark, I copied the eye. I moved it a little to the left and a little down. Now, it was 2 seconds there, but I don't think it's even going to be a second while he's glancing off to the left. So this would be the 3 second mark. I think I am going to try that. It's half as long. You know what? Let's make it even shorter. I would ask you to add, give yourself a little less than 20 frames. I'm on 48. I think I'm going to go out here to 65. And I want to F6 here again. You probably need your FN key, a lot of you. I just want to show you something quickly. So I have the eye looking forward now for 2 seconds. At the 2 second mark, he looks to the left. Now, about 20 frames later, just under a second, I copied it again because I want to move it back to the middle. So now I've got this. He's in front, he moves over to the left for a little bit, and he's back in the middle. That's the third keyframe. I think I'd like to give it about 2 seconds more. So I'm going to go a little shy of 5 seconds here and F6 it. And since I'm not tweening, it's not that hard. Anytime you want the eye to move, you go that, selected distance down the timeline and copy it. Then you could move it. I want this one to move to the right, a little bit to the right and a little down. All we got to do is get it back in the middle. Now, again, I'm making the argument that the eye won't stay in the corner very long. So I'm going to go less than a second down the road, maybe another 20 frames, and F6 again. Now, there's only one small problem. I could drag it back to the middle now, but I want it to be exactly where we started, because this eye is going to loop. So if I'm wrong, when this eye loops, it's going to be kind of weird looking. Now, is there a way that I could make sure it's in the right position? There's a few ways, but here's one. I think I need to turn on onion skinning. So I'm on the new keyframe. I manually moved it to the middle, but here's my onion skinning. And I'm going to grab the onion skin bracket until I actually see when I need to. I want to show you something. There's the onion skin ghost of the eye in the middle. It looks like I was already there. This way, when it plays over, it should loop well. That didn't look like it was really centered right. I got to see that again. If you want to test yours, go up to the control menu, turn on looping, and play it again. Even though you're inside of your graphic symbol, you should be able to see how it looks. I'm going to accept this for now and turn off my onion skinning. Now look, if you got lost, right, and I told you a few weeks back, I'm not going to repeat things 3 times, but I will often repeat them twice, right? I'm going to do it much faster, right? I'm going to undo that and do it much faster. Here you go. Going to clean these up for a minute. So here was the idea. There's the original eye, and I wanted it to stay put for 2 seconds. So I went down the timeline, and I F6'd it. Now this is safe now, right? This is 2 seconds worth. But at this point, I wanted it to move left. So I dragged it a little left and a little down, right? And now I wanted to stay there shorter because he's looking off to the side. So I'm only going to go about a second down the road, maybe a little more, a little less. And I'm going to F6 again. So it gets to stay there for a second. But this new one, this new copy that F6 gave me, I'm going to bring back to the middle. Then I'm going to give that 2 seconds. So I go about 2 seconds down, right? And I'm going to F6 it. I need him to look to the right. So here we go. Here's the beginning, 2 seconds worth. He looks left, maybe a second, and he looks back in the middle, right? And now I'm coming all the way over here, and this is the one, the new keyframe I just made, where he's going to look to the right, right, and down. I have to get that eye back so that the loop works. And last time, I was having trouble making sure it's an exact position. So here's one trick I could do. If I'm zoomed in, it's kind of hard. But if I'm zoomed way back, I could actually copy this keyframe, right, where it has it in the right position, all the way here. One way to do that is to select it and option drag it all the way over. Well, actually, I want this about a second off. So really, I think I could get away with 5 keyframes for this. All right. I want to save whatever you have, whether you love it or not, right? And I want to check something out real quickly. Oh, this isn't going to work. I have to explain why. I want to go back inside the eye. Let's work on the blinking. So I have to say something about blinking. You know, it took me a little while to really get the hang of how eyes move around, and that's going to be for close-ups. Similarly with blinking, you know, so people generally blink between 3 and 4 seconds, every 3 and 4 seconds, right? But it's not symmetrical, so I can't really keep it even. You know, every 3 seconds, it's going to look like a robot. So I don't really want that. A nervous person is going to blink a lot. You know, someone lying. You know, poetic person may blink a little less often. You know, so I'd keep that in mind. Let's work on the blinks. The other thing is, when would they blink? You know, I don't want it to cover the eye when he's looking in the corner because that's sort of important, right? So I'm going to make sure that he blinks like in between the important eye movements. Let's see what we can do about it. Could you lock the iris layer and unlock the upper lid? So there's the original lid, right? When do I want it to blink? I don't know. Let's see, do I want it to blink before he moves his eye or right after? I think I'm going to have it move right after that eye moved over. So right now I'm at about frame 60. So you're going to drag your playhead and imagine when he should blink. So I'm going to say here, all right, I'd like you to click in your upper lid layer in frame 60 if yours is similar to mine, or wherever you want otherwise. And I want you to F6. So on the upper lid layer, I want you to watch something about closing that eye, right? I could close down simply as this. Deselect it, come up here, and I start pulling it down. And I'm going to have to go back and forth if I'm going to do it with the black arrow, right? I lock the lower layers so I don't have to worry about messing them up. And I'm bringing this down however I can. Right now I'm focusing on the black arrow. with a little bit of effort. I'll get it. So there's the eye open, there's the eye closed. Now, to make him open his eye again, I'm going to copy a frame. To make a blink again, I'm going to copy the closed lid. I only need up and down, up and down. And you blink so fast, I'd never tween this. Right? So this is what I'm going to do. Right after he closes his eye, if I want a natural blink, I need his eye to be open really soon after this. I will not say necessarily in the next frame, but 2 or 3 frames down for a quick blink. So how am I going to do it? I think what I'd like to do is copy this frame right after the closed lid. So again, please use this down at the bottom, right? This little thing to zoom in and out if necessary. I want to be able to see that first frame and the one we're working on. The first frame has the open eye artwork. And I'm going to option drag it way, way over here, just a little bit past the closed eye. So I only have 2 drawings. I got the open eye here in frame 1. I have the closed eye around 60. And I'm picking which ones I want to copy. So I actually option drag that first one just past the closed lid. So now I have this. I have closed first and right after it, open. How are you guys with that? There is another way to copy frames, right? I'm afraid of sharing too much information. But if you're interested to find another way to copy a prior frame, a way that I'll often use when I'm not in class, I want to give you a peek at it. I'm going to clear this one out, the one I just made. Adobe Animate lets you copy a frame, not just artwork, but a frame. So if I go to frame 1, I could control click right on it and say copy frame. I can go anywhere on the timeline. I could even go to a different documents timeline on any layer, pick a place to put it, and then control click there and do paste frame. And that's pretty neat. If that interests you, you choose a frame that you'd like to copy, control click on it, and say copy frame. Oops, that was wrong. Sorry about that. Copy frame. Choose a place to put it in the timeline. Control click or right click and paste frame. So make sure I got that the way I wanted. This is the other one. Let me see what's going on here. Let me zoom in a little bit. Copy frame. It's actually, there we go. It was just showing up late. There's the keyframe right there. All right, I want to say a little bit about the next blink. I want 2 blinks so that they're not too symmetrical. I don't want them to blink like where the person could count. Here comes a blink. All right, so I have to choose another place for the next blink. And the easiest way to do that is going to be to drag copy both these frames. This is closed, this is open. I could drag copy it here for another blink. If I wanted to be very blinky, I could keep making copies of that set. Question is, where do I want to put it, timing wise? So it took him about 2.5 seconds to blink once, right? And I really don't want it to be too much the same. You could pick just about any random place just to see what it would be like. So here he looks left, he blinks, comes back to the center. Maybe I want to blink while it's still in the center. All right, I'm going to try it. So I'm going about 1 second or 2 down the road. Now I want to put it here. Is there a fast way to do it? If I select both these keyframes, I could option drag them. I'm going to click one, hold down shift, click the other one. So I've got the 2 drawings, and I'm going to hold down option and drag them for another blink. Again, this is a good one, right? So I would like you to see it. You find the last 2 frames that control the blink, click one, hold down shift, click the other. You got that whole unit selected. and then Option drag it or Alt drag it wherever you want the next blink. You could rewind that and see what you've got. Remember, you're still on the eye symbol. I kind of like it. Want to mention something. If you like the idea of him closing his eyes to think a little bit, right? Just separate those two frames. So in other words, this is my second blink over here. Eyes closed, eye open. If I drag the eye open a little bit further, his eye stays closed for longer. Maybe even longer. A little thoughtful pause. This is nuanced. So I just want to go over a couple things. You're going to keep changing your mind about when someone should blink and how long their eye should be closed, right? But here's the basic principle. You need a closed eye drawing and an open eye drawing. If the two of them are close, it's a fast blink. If the two of them are far apart, it's more like eye closed for a bit and then opening again. I'd like you to save what you have. Are we still good? I'm always afraid of losing people after the break. You know, a little momentum, you know, gets lost. Are you guys all right? Seeing thumbs, thank you. Right? Lots of thumbs. So I want to say something about testing what we have because I want to get busy with the mouth, you know, and the audio, right? To actually see it, more thumbs are coming up. That's cool. To actually see it, right? The whole thing properly, right? It's more than making a Swift quickly. It's more than command return, right? There is an issue. The main timeline is shorter than the eye's private timeline. The eye's private timeline is several seconds long, right? But the main timeline is only 1/24 of a second. It's got one keyframe in it. So if I make a Swift now, I'm only going to see one keyframe worth of this whole thing. It looks like a still drawing, like an illustration, right? So what I'm going to have to do is take note that if any of the symbols in it are really long, like this one is 7 seconds, for me to actually see everything work properly, I have to make the main timeline at least this long. If it's any less, I won't see the entire blink sequence. Got to be at least as long as the blink. You know, the thing is, the poem itself is probably like a minute long, right? So at some point, we're going to make that main timeline long enough for the poem. Right now, though, we need at least 7 seconds. So if your eye's blinking here, could you go back to the main timeline? So again, I'm looking in the upper left and I'm returning to the main timeline. This is the one frame I talked to you about, right? Just lots of drawing, but that's it. So we need to go out to at least frame 7. And feel free to go past it. I'm going to go all the way to 10. And I want you to F5 all your layers. So this is on the main timeline, right? Remember, I really hope people are comfortable getting in and out of symbol editing mode because we use it a lot. Now this main timeline is long enough that I could see the eyes move here and the blinking. Right? If I made a Swift, I'll see what the whole thing looks like, a looping without the distraction of. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with those eye movements. Doesn't look like he's a coffee addict, like my guys usually look, like me. Got a short blink, a longer blink. There's the short one, there's the long one. Good. All right, I want to just mention one or two quick ideas before we focus on the mouth for most of the what's remaining today, right? I want you to always know that if you're going to change the timing of that eye, find it on your main timeline and double click it. Remember, it's got its private timeline here because it's a graphic symbol, right? This is where you could change the way the eye darts, you know, by moving keyframes around on that layer, or change how he blinks by moving these keyframes around on the upper lid layer. But once you're done and you're confident the eye's done, you don't need to come here anymore, right? Make sure you're comfortable getting out. So again, it's always the top left that lets you know which timeline you're on. Right, I'm going to go back to scene 1. All right, this is the last chance for specific questions about the eye. We did it last week in a lot of detail and just about the same steps. You know, this week I focused more on more natural timing. It's been on my mind, but the steps were the same. The mouth is a lot of work, right? And we have to brace ourselves emotionally for what's about to happen. So I want to remind everybody about where we're going. You know, I'm so glad some of you have cameras on, because I could tell when people are focused, like they're finishing their eye or whatever, and it helps me time things a little better. So thank you, camera people. You're helping all these nice people who don't have cameras right now or who are shy by helping me get the timing right. Okay, I want to show you something back in the in today's folder. This was in last week's assets also, right? We're going to need to keep one of these two out open because we're going to need to draw our own version of the mouth shapes, and there's 12 of them. So I borrowed this one from Adobe, right, which was made to work with the features we're using. So this is literally theirs. I realigned things a little bit to match this chart here, right? So it's in the same order, but it's a much more subtle mouth. You could use either one of these you want. What I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to use the cartoon one. And even though the way I like to draw is a little more subtle than this, I like looking at these exaggerated versions. It really helps me understand why this means t or l or duh. By the way, if you made those 3 sounds now, notice how similar your mouth is, the tongue particularly. T, the tongue touches the top of the mouth. L, it also does. Duh, it also does. So it's all about the tongue that makes these 3 sounds. Anyway, you're going to need one of these out. So let's do it. Find your way to the assets. I'm using chart 1, and I'm on a Mac. I'm going to double click it, and it opens up in a program called Preview. So I could slide it around, and I could scale it. On Windows, you know, I'm kind of curious. Hey, Tiffany, if you double click this in Windows, what happens? Does it open in some convenient program?
Double click what? The
chart 1.
vaccine chart?
Yeah.
Well, it depends on what default action you have.
Got it.
Like sometimes it'll just open up on like a new window, just kind of like yours, just to view the picture, and depends what you have to open it.
Right. I think for most people that it comes with the same default unless you go into preferences and change it.
Yeah.
You know, some artists change
Unless you change what you want.
Some people change JPEGs to open in Photoshop. That would be sloppy for us. So I'm hoping everyone has some neat way to keep it open. All right, folks. Find that, keep it where you can get it. All right, we're back on the main timeline. Sorry, did I miss something? All right, so you need that chart where you can get it. I want you to get back to the main timeline, and let's be clear what's going on. The eye is a graphic symbol, and the mouth is a graphic symbol for similar reasons. The eye is containing the entire sequence of eye behavior. The mouth is containing the entire sequence of mouth behavior, right? So go back to the main timeline, be sure that you're there, get your black arrow, find the mouth, and zoom in a little bit. Now, we didn't make it a graphic symbol yet, so we have to do it. And I'd like you to do it very, very carefully. I actually have 3 shapes that need to be part of my graphic symbol. So what I'm going to do, I'm on the main timeline, I'm locking everything and unlocking the mouth. This is a great habit, right? I could do a lot of damage by clicking the wrong thing. But also, if I do it this way, it's easy for me to select the mouth. I could just do this, and I've selected it. Or I could click the keyframe. So however you want to do it, please make sure you're selecting all the mouth parts, but nothing else. And just click the keyframe. And then please convert to symbol. We could have done this at the beginning, but we didn't. Mouth. Very similar to the logic of the eye. And please be sure it's a graphic symbol, guys. So, Naftali, we fixed yours earlier. Remember when you had that movie clip, you were close. And I have to say, I love movie clips. We haven't discussed them this semester hardly at all. I want to tell you why these have to be graphic symbols. Even though I can put animations in a movie clip, like the eye blinking or the mouth moving, you won't see it in Animate. You only see it when you export. Weird. So animators are very shy using movie clips. They have great features of their own, but when it comes to things that have independent motion, wings flapping, car wheels turning, eyes blinking, mouths talking, it's got to be a graphic symbol. It really is critical. So it's mouth, graphic symbol, click OK. You see a blue box around it. All right, folks, I'm going to get deep now, so please be sure that you're with me. If you're still drawing eyes or hair or whatever, you're not spending your time in the best way possible. You selected the whole eye on the main timeline, made a graphic symbol. Now you need to double click it. So when you double click it, we're down to 1 layer where your original shapes are. That's fine, right? You're in the mouth graphic symbol. You can verify that by looking in the upper left. Now, we're going to need 12 keyframes, and I'd like to prepare them now. So I'm going to zoom a little bit using the zoom slider. And what I want you to do is this. I need a blank keyframe in each of these frames, out to 12, right? So I control click, I click a frame, and I control click or right click, insert blank, insert blank. By the way, F6 means copy the last keyframe. So if I have a blank keyframe, I could use F6 from there. But I don't really want you to copy the art in the first one. I want blank keyframes. I want you to make another layer, and I want blank keyframes there also. This starts with a hollow one, so I could just copy them with F6.
Oh, we turn the mouth into a graphic symbol?
Yes. Absolutely. And that's on the main timeline. And then you double click that new graphic symbol to get where I am. So I'm inside the graphic symbols timeline right now. You need 12 total keyframes because we're going to be making 12 drawings, right? It's very specific, right? That's just the way it is. Now, what I want to do, and I really want to be clear, the upper layer I just made is for labels. There's other ways I could have done it. It's just a nice way. I'm going to actually label the first frame neutral, label the next one odd, and I'm going to copy these as labels. And we did this before, but I'm going to do it again. I want to tell you something very, very frankly. Because I always label my mouth frames, it's saturating my mind now. So now it's very subtle. Like if I want a "s" sound, "s," it's really not obvious. That look here is on the chart here. So, right? Because I'm always labeling it, I'm starting to see it in my head. Notice the way different people make their sounds. Notice how my character, if he's Mr. Theater, might go "s," really exaggerate it. So we're going to label. All right. So you need 12 keyframes inside that mouth graphic symbol, and you need the same on another layer. I want you to rename the layers. The bottom one is going to be the mouth shapes, and we like to call those vicemes. And there's all kinds of articles about vicemes on the internet. Those are the mouth shapes, essentially. I'm going to name the layer above it labels. I want to very carefully choose the first frame of labels and label it. And here I go. I'm going to the top here where this hollow keyframe is. Then I look at the properties palette. It says label right here. And I'm going to type neutral. Right? He's not making any sound. Neutral. Now I can't really see that label. So I'm going to use the slider at the bottom and get really, really wide with it. I don't know how many of you have been using this feature. It's pretty great. The slider. Right now I want to see what I'm doing, so I'm getting really, really big. This is neutral. The next one here is going to be the sound ah. So I click the keyframe and I come to the property palette and I'm going to write ah. If you've got this pattern, you can move forward without me. I'm going to click the next one. Check my chart. It's t, l, d. This means all three of those sounds use the same drawing. So click right there. And then I click in the label area, T, underscore or dash, however you want to do it, l. It's not tilde, it's three different sounds. And I go to the fourth. Be really careful that you get them right. Here's the fourth one. I'm looking at my chart, that's E. It's using a double E there to emphasize it's not eh. It's E, like eek a mouse. I'm going to click right here. And I'm going to do E, E. And I'm looking for the fifth one right now. One second in there. All right. Comes after E. F and V. So I click the keyframe, go to the label area, and I type F, but also V. And you could try it out to see if it's true. You know, say fly, F, fly, and then say Victor. Notice how your teeth touch your lower lip. Fly, Victor. There's just someone who could read mouse is going to confuse F and V for that reason. So I'm going to click on that. I wrote my label and I go to the next one. Tilla again. I have to say, I'm reevaluating that, but I'm going to stick with it. I know it's a repeat. That's okay for right now. I'm thinking it through. I have reasons that aren't worth your time. So right now, just do it on faith if you don't mind. And I'm going to frame 7. So here's the first 6. I'm on M. It's an easy one to draw because it's so similar to the neutral mouth. And if I wanted to cheat a little, I could just copy that drawing because it's that similar. But I prefer to make it a little different. M. And I'm working my way through it. I'm on O, very round mouth shape. It's not ooh, I could do it OH, however helps you remember that sound. Oh. And I'm on the next line already. You know, the R sound really interests me because you don't really see someone's tongue when they say run, you know, run, but you feel it when you say run. It's all about what your tongue is doing in there, run, like people roll their R, you know. So the cartoonists tend to show the tongue, which helps people feel that sound. All right, so that's my 9th drawing there. I'm going to click that. And I'm going to put an R in there for run, Ralph. And I'm moving on. S and Z. S, Sam, and Zoo. Sue and Zoo. Sue went to the zoo. Look at my mouth. Sue went to the zoo. Sue and zoo look exactly the same. S_Z. I made a mistake. Let's see, because I'm talking too much. 9 frames are 10. No, I'm fine. I forgot the last keyframe over here. Don't look wrong. There we go. All right, so I'm on the 11th, second to last. Big open mouth. And I'm on the very last. Wha and ooh. That's interesting. Water, water. Ooh, water. I'm going to go with it. That's a standard though. So I'm going to click it. It's not woo. It's two different sounds. W, whoop, and ooh. Basically, the lips are close. It's kind of circular. I see it as a very small mouth. All right. That's going to help you draw. It's also going to help you understand. So we've got the labels there. We can go all the way back to frame 1. Remember, you had a neutral mouth. Now comes the large task, and I'm going to ask everyone to find the simplest approach you can to getting those mouth movements. I've done it with just the oval tool for certain mouths, and it works, right? But there's lots of stylistic options available, but you want to consult the chart. So there's neutral, and the next is ah, and I'm looking at this chart or the other chart to see what it's about. Well, the mouth is clearly taller than neutral, and it shows teeth and it shows tongue. So this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to steal the neutral drawing and copy it into the ah slot and adjust it. And this is just what I did last week. So I'm going to go to the first frame and option drag it over into ah. Make sure you copy it. So I used option drag or alt drag to copy it in here, ah, and now I'm going to make some moves. I want to take this and raise it a little. I'm going to take this and lower it. I have room for a big open mouth there, right? And it depends how exaggerated you want to be, because I'm going to make the mouth in between. So again, you could do this any way you interpret it. Ah. Right? So I'm going to need a big open mouth here. And I'm going to use the pencil technique that I was showing you earlier in a kind of interesting way. I have to close this gap over here. So look how I'm going to do it. I'm going to go like that, and I'm making sure I'm crossing these other shapes. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And if I really got away with it, I'll be able to fill it, right? But I don't want that color.
Professor,
Yes.
can I have a breakout room with Naftali?
Yes, absolutely. Give me 1 second. Let me just save what I'm doing so I don't cause any trouble. All right, give me a minute to rig that up. I wanted to give Tiffany the ability to do this, but Zoom won't let us do that. So that kind of sucks. Give me 1 second here. Are you guys not being transported to the breakout room, Tiffany? There they go. All right. You guys okay? So this takes a while, right? It really is kind of tedious, but I have to say the joy of it is, right, you could drop a speech into this guy. Seriously, you could have him just keep talking and he's just going to be able to do it. It's really kind of magical, but this is the price we pay, So luckily we don't have to keep doing it, right? All right. So I'm going to come back. I want to get a kind of inner mouth shape, inner mouth color. I'm going to get my eyedropper. I'm going to start with the lip color. But I'm going to click on that fill so I could use this feature I keep talking about today. And I think I want something a little redder than that for the inside of the mouth. This might do well. I think I'm going to try it. And I pour it in there. If I don't like those lines, I'm going to take my black arrow and select them and delete them. So I'm using the pencil tool a lot today, really mostly just to organize shapes so I could fill them a little later. And I come back in and I tweak stuff. I don't want those strokes. I was really using the pencil tool just to create fillable shapes. All right, thing is, this shape looks really good with teeth and a tongue, just like this cartoonist did. And I'm going to do both. And I'm going to use the same kind of ideas. I got the inside of the mouth, so I'm going to get my pencil tool again, and I'm going to cross lines to create something. The only thing I don't like is I really want this pencil tool just to be a regular line. A little easier. So I'm crossing shapes to make sure that they're closed. This line was already here, so I don't have to draw that again, right? And I'm going to get my paint bucket, get myself some white, pour it in there. Clean up after myself with the black arrow. And I could reshape these, or I could select it and smooth it. You know, it really depends on what you like. I'm going to do the same trick for the tongue pencil tool. I'm coming right over that lower lip. That looks closed. I'm going to borrow a color and adjust it from here. I just want to point out, though, if that's too much work, just pick a color from here. There's nothing wrong with doing that. That works great. You know, it's really up to you how you like to do that. I kind of like that shocker red. I think I'm going to keep it. But I don't like the strokes, so I'm taking them out. I think that needs to be darker. I want to make sure people see it. And tweak it if you want. I'm not going to get carried away. Feeling too picky for class. All right, I'm saving as I go. I'm going to T-la-duh next, and I'm going to consult my chart. T-la-duh. The mouth seems to be a little shorter. There's two sets of teeth, and they're very close. So I'm going to focus on those options. I think I'm going to use this mouth to help. I just want to make a little correction on this mouth before I do that. All right. Anytime I could steal a prior viseme, a prior mouth shape, I will. Right? So what I'm going to do is option drag this keyframe over to here because it's pretty similar to T-la-duh. So I drag it over and I look and see what changes do I need. I need some lower teeth. So this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to plow right over that tongue, right? I need the teeth to be closer. You know, actually, I want the whole mouth to be narrower. So I'm going to select the whole mouth by clicking the keyframe, and I'm going to narrow it like that. I want these teeth a little bit longer. Get the black arrow, the pencil tool, and I'm making myself again a little enclosed shape so I could fill it. The fact that this tool doesn't remember my changes is starting to annoy me. But I'm going to see if I get away with it. choose a color, pour it in there. Get rid of whatever I don't want. Clean it up. You could smooth it if you want. And I'm going to get busy with the lower teeth. T, L, D. Something like that. All right, here's my pencil tool. And I'm going to, again, just draw the teeth shape. And yeah, I'm going like right over the tongue here. This just is so annoying. This one little glitchy thing drives me kind of crazy. Doesn't want to cooperate. All right. And I'm just plowing right over this stuff. As long as it crosses some kind of border, right, I'll be able to fill what I want. As long as it's contained. I already have white, so I'm going to get my paint bucket and click here. I also don't need the tongue, so I'm going to make it white. There's my lower teeth. And I'm going to clean up after myself. Ta-la-da. The thing about it, this little bit of tongue really communicates that sound. You can't make those sounds without the tongue touching the roof of the mouth. So this is subtle, I'll admit, but I think it will actually help to include. So I'm going to do the same thing. Look, I'm just literally closing off a shape because I want to make this one redder. So I'm just closing it off. This already has a top and bottom here. Here's my paint bucket. I'm going to go get myself a dark red. Click in there. Maybe a light red. Oops, that's going to be a weird looking tongue. And at any point, I could take out those black lines again. Double clicking them is often good. It'll get any stroke they're attached to. I just I lost my color somehow in there. Let's see what just happened. Get that back for a minute. See why that's acting so strange. My double click accidentally selected the tongue. You have to be a little more careful. This is too subtle, this color, so give me a second. Just want to make sure if I'm going to bother, I want people to see it. I'll live with it. He's starting to talk. Yeah, hey man, that's good doing. All right. So you move ahead at your own speed, but I'm not going to hand draw each one of these. I'm going to do my best to see if there's something I could copy. E is a wide mouth, right? But it also has both rows of teeth. And that really helps because it's a very exaggerated E sound. I'm going to copy this last one because it's similar. Get rid of the tongue, maybe change its shape a little bit on the outside. So anytime I want to copy an earlier one, I'll click the keyframe and option drag it over. So again, E looks a little shorter than ta-la-da, E, because it's very squeezed. So I'm going to make it short first. I click the keyframe, I could select the whole mouth, get the transform tool and make it a little shorter. It could be wider if you really want to exaggerate E. And I want to get rid of the tongue. So I'm going to click it. And I think what I'm going to do is simply use the eyedropper and borrow this inner mouth color. Tongue is gone. If I want the teeth a little close, I can negotiate their shape a bit. E really has that feeling that the teeth are almost touching. And that ought to do it. All right, I stole this and I made it into that. F, V comes next. And the upper teeth touch the lower lip. So I want to see if I have anything to help with that. That might help a little. These have 2 sets of teeth. I think I'm going to copy E, work with that. So I'll option drag it over. I keep consulting the charts, right? This is roughly what I want. I could be looking at the other chart. And I could see I want 1 big block of teeth, right? Not 2. So I think what I'm going to do is click this lower block of teeth here and just give it the inner mouth color. So I'm selecting the white teeth, and I'm simply going to get the eyedropper and choose the color I want. It's also a very short mouth. So I'm going to select the mouth, whole mouth, and squeeze it with the transform tool. And now I want to get this to feel like it's overlapping here. This one often takes me some effort, but I'm going to see what I can do today. It's going to definitely take some fixing. I want to fill this with white. And I'm going to obviously have to do a bunch of fixing, as I said. That's a little better than I expected it to be, other than these edges out here. I really want it to feel like it's making contact with that lower lip. Fuh. Fun. Wonder if smoothing is going to help with this, or straighten for that matter. No, not feeling it. I'm going to have to do things a little differently here. I want to straighten this out, and it's being a little stubborn. Yeah, not so bad. Sometimes all you need to do is zoom. We'd like this to be straighter, you know. So how could I do that if I really needed to do it? I think what I'm going to do is use the brush tool and just paint over this white. So I'm going to get my eyedropper and choose this color, use that to paint over the white with. This is the inside of the mouth anyway. And I'm going to get my paintbrush. You know, paintbrush does lots of cool tricks. But one thing that's kind of nice about it is on the properties palette, it gets shapes. And sizes. Just wanted a sharper edge there. And again, that's going to do. Kind of wish this side was this color, so I'm going to change that. I'm going to select it. This is going over the gap there. Yeah, that's convincing. That takes a lot of effort, at least for me. It does. And you know, it's funny, you'll see cartoonists, even ones that don't animate, keep mirrors near them, you know, make expressions, you know, and use that to help. I got a rubbery face like Jim Carrey, so I'm handy to have around. Fun. All right. Tulada, right, is repeated. And without making speeches about why, I'm definitely not drawing it again. So I'm going to find that earlier frame and option drag it all the way into the new slot. That's just done. He's talking. I know we're going at different speeds. I'm just narrating, you know, and hopefully here and there I'm bumping into just what you need. M. Very similar to the neutral mouth, but it's more pursed, it's squeezed. This cartoonist works a little like I do. They have this little shadow for the lower lip there to try to show it's pushing up against the upper lip, squeezed. But it's so similar to neutral. If I was in a hurry, I'd just copy neutral. But I'm going to copy neutral and adjust it a little to make it squeeze like M. The lips very tight to make that M sound. I'm going to copy neutral over there. Again, I'm going to option drag because it's far away. Just make sure I don't drop it early. Right, and that looks pretty much like M, but as I said, it's a little bit more pursed. I'm going to take this thing that suggests the lower lip and move it up a bit. You can also change these shapes a little bit. A little bit more like they're squeezed together. And I'm ready for O. You know, O is very circular. O, right? And, you know, I'm looking to see, do I have anything that feels close? It doesn't really have teeth or anything. I think ah is going to be the closest thing for me to start with. I'm going to take the ah sound, copy it way over here where I need O, and adjust it. It might be better to draw it from scratch, but, you know, I don't want to do it. So I copied ah. It was our second sound way over here into the 8th O. And, you know, this person just drew it like that. You know, I want to get you a quick look at this other one, though. This is the other one's O. This cartoonist had it as like this oval. It's a little bit different. And this one's also showing teeth. You can tell there's a lot of choices. All right, I'm going to put this aside.
I know.
Simple.
Professor, I'm sorry, I disconnected.
Yeah, that's okay, Zach. I figured. That happens. I'm lucky it doesn't happen to me more often. It does, though, even in the middle of class. But I understand. Thanks for saying something. All right, right now, I'm working on the O sound. Move stuff around. O. I copied ah into here, and I want to make it rounder, right? So I got to figure out how I want to do that. I think I'm going to use the eraser, right? The eraser has some cool features on the properties palette too. I'm going to make it bigger. It also has shapes to choose from. And I'm trying to feel it. Oh, making it a little rounder. I'm going to work out the mouth a little bit, the lips, you know. Oh, I'm just feeling round, you know, just trying to think round. Oh. More erasing, maybe. I wonder if how they're doing in the breakout room. And I don't think I want really that much teeth either. That looks more like ah to me. I'm not really happy with it. think that'll work. Oops. What's going on? Click out, it disappears. See what's happening. Try that again. I'm going to stick with it. I'm on looks so much like da that I'm going to take it and then adjust it a little bit. It's a very tongue-oriented sound. So here's my da. I'm so glad I have those labels. Right, really helps you stay organized. Right, I'm going to make an sound out of this. Right, and the corners of the mouth are very different than ta, la, da. So I'm going to actually work with that. Let me see if my black arrow is going to help me with this. I may have to work harder from the looks of it. I just reached for the eraser, by the way. I just want a small change here. It's a round tongue, and I'd like to see more tongue. I really want to exaggerate that kind of sound. So, you know, while I'm talking to you guys about this stuff, you know, I've spent years drawing in Illustrator, and they have a lot in common. They really do. But they also have a lot that's different. You know, this tool is so interesting that sometimes I'll move a border and both the white and red side, both sides adjust. There's nothing like that in Illustrator. It's really great for stuff like this. Lately, though I'm a big Illustrator user, lately I've been doing all the drawing I need for animation right here in Animate, doing a lot less importing. There's my and I'm going on to S, both S and Z. Let me plug in first. Guys, if you haven't saved for a long time, can you save now? Just to play it safe. Tiffany, thanks again for helping out. It's just great. All right. So we're just moving through the sounds. I'm looking for S, Z at this point, since they both make this same kind of mouth. And again, I could work with anything close. You notice how E is so close. E really has a lot to do with the corners of the mouth. And if you say it yourself, E or peak or beat, you could feel those corners of the mouth stretching out. Sun Z is not so much about that. It's about these very close teeth. But I am going to borrow the E sound since they're that similar. So I'm finding it and I'm option dragging my way over to copy it so I don't have to draw it from scratch. Right here I in S, Z. And I'm gonna make it a little less stretchy feeling. And I think part of that is just gonna be to narrow it out. These teeth are very, very close as it is, so I don't think I really need to exaggerate it too much to pull that off. I actually think as little as that is, that looks good. This is a crazy one. This is really weird looking. It's really just a big mouth that shows some teeth, you know, teeth on top. So I could do that with anything that I have similar. I want to take a look at my O sound and see if that'll do it. I think I can work with that. I'm going to copy it over. Even though it's not one of my favorites, I'm going to work with it. I think I want it to be a little less oval than this one is. This is not cooperating as much as I would like. It's a little better. I think I want to give this a slightly different look up here. Really need something here. we're kind of just co-working, right? This stuff takes time and be the same in the classroom. I'm going to use my brush to help me paint an edge over here. But I do need a smaller tool. That's close. It may be the safer way is probably back to the pencil way. So remember, I was doing a lot of this. And that'll just close off a gap for me. This drives me nuts. Why will that not stay there? I really do not know. I'm gonna have to deal with it. So this little area here is really what interested me. Let's see if I got away with that. Maybe like that. I keep repeating the sounds because it really helps me do it. I'm gonna run with it. And then wuh and ooh, wuh. You know, Wally went west. And it's a lot like oh, right? I don't really agree with this particular artist's rendition of it, so I think I want to show the other one. Ooh, it's really round and small, and it's mostly lit. I'm looking for something to steal. I think I'm going to borrow this one. Copied into the very last slot, finally. Don't want those teeth at all, so I'm just going to click the teeth alone. Use my eyedropper to borrow the inner mouth color, right? Whoa. And I think I'm going to make it tiny. Could exaggerate the lips. My lips are, you know, this was originally a shadow. I think I'm just going to stick with it. You know, once you've got enough vice seams, you play it, and it already feels like somebody talking, and it's a little reassuring, right? Of course, it's not the magic yet. The rest is actually kind of easy. But if this feels reasonable to you, you know, I think you're going to like what happens next. Series of babbling away and blinking and talking. Once you're done with your vice seams, save what you have and create yourself a preview with Command Return. We have just enough time to finish this, which is exciting. Make sure you're saving. Now, guys, listen. We're all working differently. So some of you are way behind. You're, you know, did the 3 mouths. Others you finished 20 minutes ago, right? You had very quick ways of doing it, right? And that's one of the big challenges with a class like this, right? And I have files that I could provide that has 12 mouth shapes, but I think that's an unrealistic, you know, way to go about it. Everybody has to kind of face the workload. Those of you who love detail, and some of you love amazing amounts of detail, you know, are just going to have to be prepared to like lock yourself in and you know, do double the hours. Other people are very economical. And if you could find a simple look that works, South Park, they're probably doing this with like, you know, 5 vice seams or something, you know, very generalized, very, very crude, drawn largely in this program, but they're choosing to do it in a simpler way, right? I'm trying to find a middle ground. Pretty simple, lots of copying, lots of adapting. Look, I don't have time really to wait though. So I have to say, if you did fall behind, just notice something right now, right? It's 12:20, which means the end of the video is going to be how to activate the mouth. So if you only need the end of my class, you know, later on, go to YouTube, find the video, and just scroll over to the last half hour, 20 minutes, you know, and just see how it ended. All right. If you are ready, though, join me. If not, maybe save your file and watch for a bit. Make your own choice. All right. So I'm saving. Then I'm making sure I'm back in the scene, right? We're done working inside the graphic symbols. And since our scene is so long, we made it really, really long, right? You know, you see all the vice scenes. They're just going to keep playing over and over till the end of the movie. Now, the thing is, I want to activate the mouth, so I have to deal with the sound now. And I want to do a couple things with you. First off, I want to show you something just in the assets folder. So in your assets folder is this file called Fire and Ice Short. It's named after the poem, right? And I need to know how long it is, right? So on Windows, I imagine you could right click and choose properties. I'm on a Mac though, so I could right click and choose Get Info. I usually just do Command I. And right here it says duration, 29 seconds, right? So it's about a half of a minute, 29 seconds. That means if I have less than that, he can't finish the poem. So you could right click on Windows, I believe, and choose properties. You could right click in Windows, Get Info, or if I had to, I'd open it in an audio program, but it's 29 seconds. I want to check my timeline and make sure that it's at least 29 seconds. So I'm talking about the main timeline now. Give me a second, something, I just want to see what, there we go. I was just missing a feature I need. I want to zoom back here using that zoom slider at the bottom of the timeline. Love this feature. It's kind of new in this program. I only have about 10 seconds, so this is not enough for him to talk. If we turn on the mouth with the poem early, we're going to have to delete the whole layer anyway, because it's going to place your vicemes incorrectly. It really helps to make sure the main timeline as long as your vocal. So I'd like you to go all the way out to 30 seconds and F5 every layer. Way out here in frame 720. Please use that little zoom option at the bottom. You're going to need it. We want to definitely F5 these. Please don't F6. If you F6, you're copying artwork, and you might be copying the wrong thing for your purposes. So literally F5 and you make sure nobody disappears on the way down. And after this, it's going to be all about the sound file and the audio. I'm saving yet again. All right, I'm on the main timeline. I left symbol editing mode and I made it all 30 seconds long, way out to frame 720, right? Now I'm going to bring in my audio. Now you might remember from last class that the way you use sound files in this program is you bring them into the library first, right? And that's always the best way to do it. So I'm going to do it that way also. So you should have your assets ready. So here I am in Animate, File menu, Import, Import to Library. Right? So you have to do this with all your sound files. File menu, Import, Import to Library. I'm going to find my way to today's folder. And I'm going to get the MP3, Fire and Ice, short.mp3. File menu, import, import to library. Then check the library. All right. Once you have it in the library, you make a layer for your sound, and then you simply drag and drop it from the library right on the stage. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to make myself a layer. It doesn't really matter where you put it, but I'm going to call it vocal or voice. I think I better call it voice. All right, voice. There's one keyframe there. So when I drag and drop it on stage, it's going to live in that keyframe automatically. And you see the waveform. Get it in the library, make a layer, and drag it on stage. All right. Something I skipped last time, and somehow we all got away with it, for a little while, was I have to make sure this sound is set to stream. When you're working, you want to be able to stop the playhead and say, oh, he just said something dramatic. I want to move his eyebrow and play it again and hear what you're doing. You need the freedom to stop and play and still hear that moment. And the only way that's going to work is to check that the sound is set to called stream. And here's how you do it. Once the sound's on its layer, click in it, anywhere in it, doesn't matter where, and go to the property palette. This whole sound area comes to life. It says sound, but if you get to sync, this used to be set to event by default. Mine just showed up in stream, which is excellent for me, but I'm kind of curious. When you click on your sound and look at the properties palette, is this already set to stream? Could somebody answer me? So basically, once you get the sound on its layer, you click in the layer, right in the sound, and go to the properties palette. You'll see a whole sound area. This area says sync. Does yours say stream?
Lista says yes, it says stream.
It does. So I'm kind of wondering then, they must have changed the default. It basically means folks like us are doing this a lot these days, and they changed it. The old default event would have to play from frame 1. You couldn't keep stopping. It had different purposes. Rather annoying. If yours is set to stream, you're good. All right. What next? We're done with the sound. Imported to the library, dragged into a layer, dragged on stage. We double check it's set to stream. All right. Here comes the fun part. Ta-da! Right? We got to go select the mouth. I love this part. So if your mouth layer is locked, you probably have to unlock it, the mouth layer. And I want you to click it once. Now remember, don't double click it because you're going back into symbol editing mode. That was enough work. Just click it once. You're on your main timeline. All we're going to do now is use this amazing automatic lip sync feature that analyzes the audio almost like it's intelligent, like artificial intelligence, and figuring out which of those sounds match it, which of those mouth drawings match it. All right, so select that mouth on the main timeline with one click only. Then look at your properties palette. This is the area that I'm talking about. It's called looping. And yours may be way down. If you can't find it, fold some stuff up. We're just talking about this. All right. There are these 3 little buttons here, and the one on the right is the one we want. It's called play single frame. So basically, it's not going to run through the frames automatically, right? It's going to just play one of those vice themes at a time. And that's what we want to do, one at a time. But how does it know which one? We click lip syncing. So first you have to set this, play single time. Otherwise it's going to loop through the whole thing. We want this not to loop. Then you click this, lip syncing. Here's where your work shows up, its value. You click lip syncing. This is the 12 slots, and it's telling you what sounds it wants. The only one it has right is neutral. So you go to ah and click it, and it shows you yours. Pick ah. You go to duh, click it, and pick duh. And you go right through it. E, click E, and click it. I'll do this twice, but I have to run through it the first time. I click F, and I find my F, and L, and I find my L, and M, I do the same. O, don't really like that one, but we'll see. R, R. So you click them one at a time. Almost there. I want you to check number 2 in this window. Sync with audio in layer, and it picked the right one. But if you had multiple audio layers, you'd have to make sure you got the right one here. So it's actually going to look at that other layer with the sound in it, apply the information you just gave it to make it match. Now you click done. And you cross your fingers at this stage. And you'll notice it populated with keyframes. It's using your own labels, right? So you actually know what these sounds are in case you disagree with them, right? And you should be able to just play it. I'm going to play mine first.
Fire and ice. Some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice. From what I've tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But if I had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to say that for destruction, ice is also great and would suffice.
I'm really happy with it. I'm going to save it, but I'm going to do it one more time because this really deserves it. I'm going to try to quickly clear this gazillion keyframes. So I'm back where we started. I got just the one neutral mouth, and I'm even going to throw out my audio layer. All right. The first step to prepare the sound is to import the sound. Now, I already did that, but we did File menu, Import to Library to achieve it. And you find your sound file, and it shows up in the library. This is an MP3. Then you make a layer for it and give it a good name, like voice. If I had multiple characters, I'd probably say Sam's voice or whatever. I drag my sound out onto stage for my new layer. There it is. And I could lock it. Then I pick my mouth. So now I'm going to go to the properties palette. So there's really a couple things I need to do here when I'm ready to activate the mouth. I click it once, and I go to the properties palette, and I check this looping area. I don't really want it to loop at all. So I click this. This means play one frame at a time. Then I click lip syncing. Now, when you first do this, they're all going to be copies of your neutral mouth. And the first one is right. But the second one for won't be. So you'll click it, and you'll find the one you want. And you click all through them and find the one you want because it's looking at everything else inside that mouth graphic symbol. You go through all 12, takes about a second each until all 12 match your intentions. Then you go to number 2 and just make sure it's looking at the right audio layer. We only have one, so it'll probably be right. And click done. A lot of prep, but amazingly, this final step is pretty darn easy. I want to save it. And you could always check it out.
Fire and ice. Some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice. From what I've tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But if I had to...
I want to say a thing or two. I'm very happy with it, and I can get away with it. I've been doing a lot of this lately, though, and I noticed that it doesn't seem to be getting my Fs right. It looks so good, no one's going to see that. They'll be fine. But if it bothers you, or you see anyone that bothers you, there's a manual way to make a change that's kind of nice. So I want to show you what I mean. This is a fringe, and if you're shot right now, you could ignore it. I'm fine. I want to hear the first time he says fire.
Fire.
Well, there we go. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So here's the fire. You could see here's the R here. Let me just make this bigger. There's the R. Why is this a S sound? Right? And you know, fire, you know, he's speaking quickly enough that you don't even notice it.
Fire.
So I don't really care. But if you did want to change it, find the frame that bothers you, then click the artwork. And instead of using any of these features, you use this one. So I could find one keyframe I don't like, I'll click it, click the art, and I could click frame picker, which lets me choose the one I want. The rest are safe. So now this is going to be a little more convincing. Fire.
And
You know, I don't know. Maybe if I was going to do a close up of his mouth, that would really matter. But you know, I've had it where I disagree completely. Like, oh, that's just wrong. I'll click that keyframe and replace it myself. I want to save again. Folks, the class ends in like 3 minutes. Of course, I'm going to stick around. I know a lot of people have to go. Does anybody have a question that's something you could phrase? There's a lot of steps. I hope I've made you all feel safe by now. It's possible that you don't have questions just because there's so much, you know, going on. That's why I chose to do this 2 weeks in a row. You know, I would love to make the YouTube's videos downloadable. And I really wouldn't mind you guys keeping one that was the one you felt like you needed most. I think a lot of you know how to hack into YouTube. For the record, I won't sue you if you figure out ways to download any of my videos. I could drop any of them in the Google Drive. I'm just afraid of using up the whole Google Drive quickly. If anyone has a special request, they'd like one video put in the Google Drive where you could more easily download it, let me know, and I can make that happen. I really do feel like to get something like this down, one might have to watch the video, you know, take that session more than once. Allow me one more luxury. The handout is very detailed. The only issue with it is it's one set of steps. You know, like it mentions the lower eyelid. Today, I chose not to do it. It's just not that important. I see a lot of 3D animators make their eyes blink with both lids, and it always looks wrong to me. You know, and it's really weird. The claymation guys seem to like to do that. You know, but I don't know. So, you know, the details there, you take and leave. Take what you want, leave what you don't. So anyway, guys, I have to sign off. I am going to stick around, but I do want to say, be here next Friday. It's the last of the official classes, and we'll see what I have in store for you next Friday when it arrives. Then I'm going to announce whether I'm going to have an extra session or not. And that extra section will be optional. And I'm not going to hold anyone to it. But next Friday is the 15th class. It is part of my opus that we're sharing today. Right? So I'll see you next Friday. Anybody have any questions for me, your statements? How did it go? Is anyone delighted with what they did? Did anyone have like particularly successful moment? No one's thrilled? Okay. Joseph, I think you're being humble there. I'm getting the feeling that
Just tired.
can I convince anyone to share? Callista, are you up to sharing? You don't have to. You really, really don't. I won't hold it against you. I know you like to chat, which I typically leave to Tiffany.
She says yes.
Oh yeah, great. I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. Guys, listen, I took attendance, so if anyone has to go, don't feel bad. It's 12:40. You're cool. If you want to stick around, stick around. I will. I'll answer questions. I'm going to give Callista the wheel for a little bit. So I'm going to stop my sharing. And guys, listen, also just in the interest of protecting a little bit more of your privacy, I'm going to stop recording at this point. So I just want to say goodbye to YouTube people, right? See you all next week.
That looks like Xehanort.